by Joseph Barclay, 1878, at sacredtexts.com. The Talmud. Click to enlarge frontispiece view of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, with the Mosque of Omar standing partly on the site of the Jewish temple. By Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 381. Index. Abraham to blasphemy. Abraham, sorcery attributed to him, page 21. To him, page 21. Legend of The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. The Talmud. Click to enlarge frontispiece view of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, with the Mosque of Omar standing partly on the site of the Jewish temple. To illustrate the treatise on the red heifer. The Talmud. By Joseph Barclay, LLD. Rector of Stapleford, Hertz. WSHW Miguel THWRH Abath. I. 1. With illustrations and plan of the temple. London. John Murray, Albemarle Street. 1878. Scanned, proofed and formatted by John Bruno Hare, April 2008. This text is in the public domain in the U.S. because it was published prior to 1923. Printed by R. and R. Clark, Edinburgh. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. V. Preface. The following selection of treatises, translated from the Mishnah, with explanations from the Gemara and other sources, is designed to supply the reader with a general and impartial view of this important branch of Hebrew literature. These treatises are chosen because they illustrate Bible teaching, and it is attempted to present them in a literal and readable form. Those are omitted which are either too tedious or too gross for general circulation. It will be observed that these treatises contain the particular mode of thought against which the deepest woes of the New Testament are denounced, while, at the same time, they afford much information concerning the inner life of the Jews at the period of our Savior's sojourn upon earth. Hence the reason is apparent why the Talmud is either undervalued or overvalued, according to the reader's standpoint. Speaking generally, however, it has proved injurious to those who have submitted to its authority, and bowed to the dictum that the Bible is like water, the Mishnah is like wine, and the Gemara is like spiced wine. P. Vi. To the treatises from the Talmud there is added a translation of the treatise on the tabernacle, from the Beerith, where there are various readings in the original text. That rendering is given which seems most probable. A residence of several years in the East, of which 10 were passed in the Holy Land, enabled me to gather the opinions of some of the most learned rabbis with regard to disputed points in the interpretation of the Talmud. The substance of these opinions is embodied in this volume. J.B. Stapleford Rectory, Herts, November 1877. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. Vi. Intense. Page. List of illustrations. Page X. List of authorities. Page Xi. Introduction. Page 1. Mishnah treatises. I. On blessings. Page 49. I. On the sabbatical year. Page 62. I. On the Sabbath. Page 83. IV. On the Passover. Page 95. V. On the Day of Atonement. Page 119. VI. On Tabernacles. Page 136. VII. On the New Year. Page 149. VII. On Fasting. Page 158. IX. On the Feast Offering. Page 169. S. On the Sanhedrin. Page 176. Xi. On Idolatry. Page 204. XII. On the Fathers. Page 218. XIII. On the Daily Sacrifice. Page 242. XIV. On the Measurements of the Temple. Page 255. XVI. On Leprosy. Page 267. XVI. On the Red Heifer. Page 300. XVII. On Hands. Page 324. XVII. Treatise on the Tabernacle, from the Beretha. Page 334. P. V. Appendix. Page. Note on Modern Judaism. Page 359. Calendar of the months and chief Jewish feasts and fasts in each year. Page 364. Note on the Sanhedrin. Page 366. Notes on the plan of the temple from the Talmud and other Jewish authorities. Page 367. Notes on the tabernacle. Page 375. List of texts. Page 373. Index. Page 381. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. PX. List of illustrations. View of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, showing the site of the temple. To illustrate the treatise on the red heifer. Priest in linen vestments sprinkling blood, the Day of Atonement. Two-face page. High priest in his robes bestowing the blessing. Top of the Mount of Olives, as seen from Mount Moriah. A modern Polish rabbi wearing talith and phylacteries. Mezuzah or sign upon the doorpost, phylactery for the forehead, phylactery for the arm. Inscription on the stone of warning from the temple. Plan of the temple. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. X. Pzi. List of the chief authorities used in preparing this volume. Aboda Sarah, von Dr. U of Nuremberg, 1856. Alphabetisch List aller Gellerden Juden und Judenen, von MP Young Leipzig, 1817. Ruck, von Rabbi Nathan, 2 vols. Prague, 1835. Otzer Leshem Hakadish, by Hognini, 2 vols. Leiden, 1575. Barakov, von Pinnerboven, 1842. Beretha 1801. Buxtorf, Works of Basil, 1639, 1680. Curiosities of Literature, by D. Israeli 1834. Der Talmud in seiner Nichtjigkeit Warsaw, 1848. Discourses by Wadden 1718. Entdex Judenthum, von Eisenmenger, 2 vols. Königsberg, 1711. Eshkol Hakoffer, The Curate View of the Oral Law. Edinburgh Reviewed July 1873. Hebrew Republic, by Lewis, 2 vols. 1724. History of the Jews, by Milman, 3 vols. 1829. Issakamuna, by Isaac ben Abraham 1632. Introduction to Hebrew Literature, by Etheridge 1856. Joma, by Sheringham 1696. Josephus, Works of, by Wiston 1848. Justin Martyr, Dialogue with Trypho, by Reverend G. Reith 1870. Kidder on the Messiahs 1726. La Géographie du Talmud, par Adolphe Neubauer Paris, 1868. La Source de la Vie, par Samson Levy, 2 vols. Paris, 1845. Law Magazine, Growth of Jewish Law August 1872. PZ. Lexicon Penaglodan, Hebraican, Chaldaican, Syriacan, Talmudico-Rabbinican, and Arabicum, by Schindler Frankfurt on the Main, 1653. Lightfoot, Works of 1684. Marika Markov, by Aquinas Paris, 1629. Maxer, 3 vols. Vienna, 1859. Midrash Rabbah Leipzig, 1864. Midrash Tanhuma Warsaw, 1849. Mishnah, by Rabbi Solomon Adani Amsterdam, 1645. Mishnah, Judeo-German, 6 vols. Vienna, 1817. Mishnah, with commentaries, by Sherm Huzias, 6 vols. Amsterdam 1698. Mishnah, Constitutions and Laws of, by Maimonides, 2 vols. Venice, 1549. Mishnah Treatises, by De Sola and Raffel 1843. Modern Judaism, by J. Allen 1830. Modern Judaism, by Dr. Margolieff 1843. Old and New Testaments. Old Paths, by Dr. McCall 1854. Philo Judaeus, by C. D. Junge, 4 vols. 1854. Quarterly Review October 1867. Rabbinisch Blumenlies, von Leopold Dukes Leipzig, 1844. Rollins Works 1723. Rites and Ceremonies of the Jews, by Levi 1783. Selections from the Talmud, by H. Polano 1877. Shem Haggadah Vienna, 1864. Sifra, Sefer Torah Kohanim Bucharest, 1860. Soda von Wagenseil Altrur, 1674. Talmud of Babylon, 12 vols. Vienna, 1843. Talmud of Jerusalem, 4 vols. Russia, 1866. Targums of Onkelos and Jonathan ben Uzziel, with the fragments of the Jerusalem Targum, by Etheridge 1862-65. Temple Services, by Dr. Edersheim 1874. Vakarupa of Maimonides, by Zeller Amsterdam, 1709. Zoller, 3 vols. Zolku, 1862. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 1. Introduction. Chapter I. Compilation of the Talmud, Rabbi Judah the Holy, Mishnah, Gemara, General Survey of the 6 orders or volumes of the Mishnah. The Talmud teaching comprises the Mishnah and the Gemara. The Mishnah learning or second law was, according to Jewish tradition, delivered to Moses on Mount Sinai. Rabbi Levi, the son of Shammah, says, Rabbi Simon, the son of Lachish, says, What is that which is written? I will give thee tables of stone, and a law and commandments which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. 1. The tables are the 10 commandments. The law is the written law. And the commandment is the Mishnah. Which I have written means the prophets and sacred writings. That thou mayest teach them means the Gemara. It teaches us that they were all given to Moses from Mount Sinai. From Moses the Mishnah was transmitted by oral tradition through 40 receivers, until the time of Rabbi Judah the Holy. These receivers were qualified by ordination to hand it on from generation to generation. Abarbanel and Maimonides disagree as to the names of these receivers. While the temple still stood as a center of unity to the nation, it was considered unlawful to reduce these traditions to writing. But when the temple was burned, and the Jews were dispersed amongst other peoples, it was considered politic to form them into a written code, which should serve as a bond of union, and keep alive the spirit of patriotism. The Jewish leaders saw the effect of constitutions. P. 2. And Pandex in consolidating nations, the advantage of written laws over arbitrary decisions. Numberless precedents of case law, answering to our common law, were already reported, and the teachings of the Hebrew jurisconsults, or responsa prudentium, which were held to be binding on the people, had been preserved from former ages. All these traditions Rabbi Judah the Holy undertook to reduce into one digest. And this laborious work he completed about AD 190, or more than a century after the destruction of Jerusalem by Titus. Rabbi Judah was born on the day that Rabbi Akiba died. Solomon is said to have foretold the event, one son Arasa, and one son goeth down. Akiba was the Seti and Judah the rising sun. The Mishnah of Rabbi Judah, afterwards revised by Abba Areka in Surah, is the text of the Babylon Talmud. The commentaries written on this text by various rabbis in the neighborhood of Babylon, until the close of the 5th century, are called the Gemara Completion, and are published in 12 folio volumes, called the Babylon Talmud, the Talmud most esteemed by the Jews. The Jerusalem Talmud contains commentaries written partly by rabbis in Jamnia and partly in Tiberias, where they were completed by Rabbi Jochanan in the beginning of the 4th century. As now published, it has only 4 out of the 6 orders or books of the Mishnah, with the treatise Nida from the 6th. In the time of Maimonides it contained 5 orders. On 26 treatises it has no Gemara, though in the treatise on Shekels the Gemara of Jerusalem is used for the Babylon Talmud. The 6 books of the Mishnah are subdivided into 63 treatises, in the following manner. Book I. This book, called Order of Seeds, contains the following treatises. 1. Blessings, together with prayers and thanksgivings, with the times and places in which they are to be used. 2. A corner of a field live. XXII. 22. Joint. XXIV. 19. P. 3. Treats of the corners of the field to be left for the poor to glean them, the forgotten sheaves, olives, and grapes, and of giving alms, etc. 3. Doubtful treats of the doubt about the tithes being paid, as the Jews were not allowed to use anything without its being first tithed. 4. Diversities Lev 6. 19. Joint. XXII. 9-11, Treats of the unlawful mixing or joining together things of a different nature or kind, of sowing seeds of a different species in one bed, grafting a sign on the stock of a different kind, suffering cattle of different kinds to come together. 5. The sabbatical year in Zod. XXII. 11. Lev XXV. 4. Treats of the laws which regulated the land as it lay fallow and rested. 6. Heave offerings num. XVII. 8. Treats of separating the heave offering, who may eat it, and who may not eat of its pollutions, etc. 7. The first tithes Lev. XXVII. 30. Num. XVII. 28. Treats of the law of tithes for the priests. 8. The second tithes Doit. Zu. 22. XXVI. 14. Treats of those which were to be carried to Jerusalem and there eaten, or to be redeemed in the money spent in Jerusalem in peace offerings. 9. Cake of dough num XV. 20. Treats of setting apart a cake of dough for the priests. Also, from what kind of dough the cake must be separated. 10. Uncircumcised fruit Lev Zix. 23. Treats of the unlawfulness of eating the fruit of any tree till the 5th year. The first 3 years it is uncircumcised. The 4th year it is holy to the Lord. The 5th year it may be eaten. 11. First fruits Exod. XXII. 19. Joint. XXVI. 1. Treats of what fruits were to be offered in the temple, and in what manner. Also of the baskets in which they were to be carried. Key. 4. Book 2. The order of the festivals. 1. Sabbath treats of the laws relating to the 7th day. 2. Mixtures, or combinations, treats of the extension of boundaries, whereby all the inhabitants of the court, or entry, where the mixture is made, are counted as one family inhabiting one domicile, and are therefore allowed to carry victuals from one house to another. It also treats of the mixtures for a Sabbath day's journey, whereby the distance may be extended for an additional 2,000 cubits. 3. Passovers treats of all rites and ceremonies relating to the Paschal lamb. 4. Shekels of Zod. XXX. 13. Treats of the half shekel, which every Jew, rich or poor, was obliged to pay every year to the daily sacrifice. 5. Day of Atonement treats of the solemnities peculiar to it. 6. Tabernacles teaches how they are to be built, and how to be used. 7. The egg laid on a festival treats of the works which may or may not be done on any of the festivals, which are called days of holy convocation, on which no servile work may be done. 8. New Year treats of the laws and solemnities of the feast of the New Year, as also of the feasts of the new moons. 9. Fasts treats of the various fasts throughout the year. 10. The roll treats of the feast of Purim, and gives instructions how and in what manner the book of Esther and other lessons are to be read. The Gemara directs Jews to get so drunk on this feast, that they cannot discern the difference between blessed be Mordecai and cursed be Haman, and cursed be Mordecai and blessed be Haman. 11. Minor feasts treats of the works, that may and that may not be lawfully done on the 2d, 3d, 4th, 5th, and 6th days, when the 1st and 7th are holy. These intermediate days being lesser festivals. Key. 5. 12. Sacrifices on festivals treats of the 3 great festivals, when all the males were obliged to appear before the Lord, and of the sacrifices which they were to bring. It also lays down rules for the dissolution of vows, which it says are like mountains hanging on a hair, for the text is slender and the constitutions many. Book 3. On Women. 1. Brother's Widow Doit. XXV. 5-11, treats of the law obliging a brother to marry the relict of his deceased brother. Also, when the obligation is to take place, and the ceremonies to be used at its performance. 2. Marriage settlements treats of dowries and women who happen to obtain estates, either real or personal. From this tract the baptism of infant proselytes can be proved. 3. Vows num XXX. 4-16, shows when vows are binding and when null and void. When a married woman makes a vow the husband can confirm or annul it. This tract points out what vows fall under his cognizance and what do not. 4. The Nazarite num vi. 21, treats of the laws relating to the different sorts of Nazarites. 5. Trial of jealousy num. v. 11-31, treats of the mode of trial and punishment of criminals. Men may go home to their wives from voluntary wars, but not from wars of command. This tract shows the miserable state of the Jews at the destruction of the Second Temple, and at the future advent of the Messiah. 6. Divorces treats of the laws relating to divorces, also the formalities to be observed both before and after they are given. A man may divorce his wife if she spoil his bra, or if he find another more handsome. 7. Betrothing treats of the laws of espousals and some other previous rites of marriage. It commands sons to be taught suitable trades. It states that all ass drivers are p. 6. Wicked. Camel drivers are honest, sailors are pious, physicians are destined for hell, and butchers are company for a mother. Book 4. On damages. 1. First gate, so called because in the East law is often administered in the gateway of a city. It treats of all such damages as may be received from man or beast. It assesses damages done by a beast according to the benefit which the beast receives. If it eat a peck of dates, its owner would be fined for a peck of barley, as dates are not more nourishing for a beast than barley. 2. The middle gate treats of laws of usury and trusts, of letting out on hire, of landlord and tenant, etc. 3. Last gate treats of the laws of commerce and co-partnership, of buying and selling, of the laws of inheritance and the right of succession. 4. Sanhedrin treats of the great national senate. 5. Stripes treats of false witnesses, of the law of the 40 stripes save one, of those who were bound to fly to the cities of refuge. 6. Oaths explains the laws for administering oaths. When an oath is to be admitted between contending parties who are qualified to take them. In Hilcoth Ethics. 1. It is taught that 10 sorts of persons are disqualified: women, slaves, children, idiots, deaf persons, the blind, the wicked, the despised, relations, and those interested in their evidence. 7. Evidences are a collection of many important decisions gathered from the testimonies of distinguished rabbis. It is observable that the decisions of the school of Shammai are more rigorous than those of the school of Hillel, from whence it is inferred that the former adhere more closely to scripture, the latter to tradition. The former were the scribes, and are now represented by the Quraysh, who reject the Talmud. P. 7. 8. Idolatry, or the worship of stars and meteors, treats of the way to avoid this grievous sin. 9. The Fathers contains a history of those who handed down the oral law, also many maxims and proverbs. 10. Punishment treats of the punishment of those disobedient to the Sanhedrin Doit. XVII. 8-11. Book 5. On Holy Things. 1. Sacrifices treats of the nature and quality of the offerings. The time, the place, and the persons, by whom they ought to be killed, prepared, and offered. 2. Meat offerings treats of the flour, oil, and wine, and the wave loaves. 3. Unconsecrated things treats of what is clean and unclean, of not eating the sinew that shrank, and not killing the dam and her young in one day doit. XXII. 6. 4. Firstborn treats of their redemption by money, and their being offered in sacrifice. Also of the tithes of all manner of cattle. 5. Estimations lev. XXVII. 2. Treats of the way in which things devoted to the Lord are to be valued in order to be redeemed for ordinary use. Also, how a priest is to value a field which a person has sanctified. 6. Exchanges lev. XXVII. 10. 33. Treats of the way exchanges are to be effected between sacred things. 7. Cutting off treats of offenders being cut off from the Lord. 8. Trespass num. V. 6. 8. Treats of things partaking of the nature of sacrilege. It asserts that if a man take away a consecrated stone or beam, he commits no trespass. If he give it to his companion, he commits a trespass, but his companion commits none. If he build it into his house, he commits no trespass till he lives in the house long enough to gain the value of an half farthing. If he take away a consecrated half farthing, he commits no trespass. If he, P. 8. Give it to his companion, he commits a trespass, but his companion commits none. If he give it to a bathkeeper, he commits a trespass though he does not bathe, because the bathkeeper says to him, "See, the bath is open. Go in and bathe." 9. The daily sacrifice treats of the morning and evening offerings. 10. The measurements treats of the measurements of the temple. 11. Birds' nests treats of the mistakes about doves and beasts brought into the temple for sacrifice. Book 6. On purifications. 1. Vessels treats of those which convey uncleanness levzai. 33. 2. Tents num 6. 14. Treats of tents and houses retaining uncleanness, how persons who enter them become unclean, and how they are to be cleansed. 3. Plagues of leprosy treats of leprosy of men, garments, or dwellings, how their pollution is conveyed, and how they are to be purified. 4. The red heifer directs how she is to be burned, and how her ashes are to be used in purifying. 5. Purifications teaches how purifications are to be effected. 6. Pools of water num XXXI. 23. Treats of their construction, and the quantity of water necessary for cleansing. 7. Separation of women. 8. Liquors that dispose seeds and fruits to receive pollution levzai. 38. 9. Issues that cause pollution. 10. Baptism on the day of uncleanness Lev XXII. 6. 11. Hands treats of the washing of hands before eating bread, though dry fruits are allowed to be eaten without such washing. P. 9. 12. Stalks of fruit which convey uncleanness treats of fruits growing out of the earth, which have a stalk and no husk. They can be polluted and can pollute, but may not be compounded with anything that was unclean before. If they have neither stalks nor husks, they neither can be polluted nor can they pollute. It also treats of the hair and wool that grows on some fruits, and the beards of barley, etc. Footnotes 1-1 Exod. XXIV. 12. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 10. Chapter 2. History of the Talmud, other rabbinical writings, the Beritha, schools of Tiberias and Babylon, struggles for supremacy, form of cheering. From the 6 books or orders the Jews call the Babylon Talmud by the pet name of Shah 6. The language in which it is written is Hebrew intermingled with Aramaic, Chaldee, Syriac, Arabic, Greek, and Latin words. The Gemara was first begun by Rabban Judah's 2 sons, Rabbi Gamaliel and Rabbi Simeon. It was vigorously carried on by Rabbi Ash in Surah, a town on the Euphrates, from 365 AD to 425. He divided the Mishnah into its 63 treatises, and every half year summoned his disciples and assigned to them 2 fresh portions of the law and 2 of the Mishnah. At each meeting their remarks on these portions were discussed, and if approved were incorporated into the Gemara. Rabbi Zebed, Gibia Rekuma, and Semelech Bedva. 1, and Rabbis Merima, Ada Barabin, Nachman Barhano, and Tusfo, presidents of the schools of Surah, labored for its advancement. And it was finally completed by Rabbi Abino Rabina, and sealed by Rabbi Jose about 498 AD. He was the last of the dictators. Those who lived after him were called opinionists, as they did not dictate any doctrines, but only deduced opinions from what had already been settled in the canon of the Talmud. The opinionists were succeeded by the sublime doctors, who were in turn replaced by the ordinary rabbis. In addition to the Talmud there has been handed down a vast amount of Jewish learning, such as the Beritha, the Tosafot or appendices, the p. 11. Paragraph continues Mechilta or traditions unknown to Rabbi Judah the Holy, and the commentaries Sifra and Sefer. Of these the Jews regard the Beritha as second to the Mishnah. The mark of Beritha is the sages learned, or it is once learned, or it is learned in another one. And everything which is not disputed of all these things is an established decision. And whatever is disputed goes according to the concluded decision. What is disputed in the Beritha, which is not questioned in the Mishnah, the decision is according to the Mishnah. What is disputed in the Mishnah, and not questioned in the Beritha, is not to be decided according to the Beritha. And thus it is said, if Rabbi Judah the Holy did not teach it, whence could Rabbi Chaya know it? The exception is, that when the decision of Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Jacob, is given, it is regarded as equal to the Mishnah. In 102 questions the decision is always with him. The period during which both the Jerusalem and Babylon Talmuds were compiled was a season of comparative peace for the Jews. From the death of Rabbi Judah the Holy until Constantine ascended the throne the schools in Tiberias were unmolested. Judah was succeeded in the patriarchate by Gamaliel, and he in turn gave way to Judah II. Being inferior in learning to some of his own rabbis, the splendor of his patriarchate was eclipsed by the superior talents of Simon ben Laches and Rabbi Jochanan. From that time the patriarchate gradually sank in estimation, till the struggles for unlimited power, and the rapacity of the rabbis, brought the office into contempt, and caused the emperor Honorius in one of his laws to brand them as devastators. Still, with a loyal affection to the race of Israel, the Jews, wherever scattered in the west, looked to Tiberias as their Zion, and willingly taxed themselves for the support of its rabbinical schools. The Jews in the east regarded the prince of the captivity or patriarch of Babylon as their center and chief. He rose to power between the abandonment of the Mesopotamian provinces by Hadrian and the rise of the Persian kingdom. He presided over his subjects with viceregal power and a p. 12. Splendid court. Rabbis were his satraps, and the wise and learned his officers and counselors. Wealth flowed in upon his people, who were engaged in every kind of commerce. One of his merchants in Babylon was said to have had 1,000 vessels on sea and 1,000 cities on shore. There was for a time a spirit of rivalry between the spiritual courts of Tiberias and Babylon. On one occasion there was an open schism about the calculation of the Paschal feast. The struggle for supremacy took place when Simon, son of Gamaliel, who claimed descent from Aaron, was patriarch of Tiberias, and Aya, who claimed descent from King David, was prince of the captivity. His 2 most learned men were Hananiah, the rector of Nahar Parkot, and Judah, son of Bezariah. To humble these men was the aim of Simon. Accordingly he sent 2 legates with 3 letters to Babylon. The first letter was given to Hananiah. It was addressed, "To Your Holiness." Flattered by the title, he politely asked the reason of their visit. To learn your system of instruction. Still more gratified, he paid them every attention. Availing themselves of their advantage, the legates used every effort to undermine his teaching and lessen his authority. Hananiah, enraged by their conduct, summoned an assembly, and denounced their treachery. The people cried out, "That which thou hast built, thou canst not so soon pull down. The hedge which thou hast planted, thou canst not pluck up without injury to thyself." Hananiah demanded their objections to his teaching. They answered, "Thou hast dared to fix intercalations and new moons, by which nonconformity has arisen between Babylon and Palestine." "So did Rabbi Akiba," said Hananiah, "when in Babylon." "Akiba," they replied, "left not his like in Palestine." "Neither," cried Hananiah, "have I left my equal in Palestine." The legates then produced their second letter, in which it was written, "That which thou hast left a kid is grown up a strong-horned goat." Hananiah was struck dumb. Rabbi Isaac, one of the legates, ran, and mounted the reading desk. "These," said he, calling them out aloud, "are the holy days of God, and He." 13. These the holy days of Hananiah. The people began to murmur. Rabbi Nathan, the second legate, rose, and read the verse of Isaiah, "Out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." Then in a mocking voice, "Out of Babylon shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Ner-Pakad." The congregation was in an uproar. "Alter not the word of God," was the universal shout. The legates then produced the third letter, threatening excommunication to all who would not obey their decrees. They further said, "The learned have sent us, and commanded us to say, if he will submit, well. If not, utter at once the cherem. 1. Also set the choice before our brethren in foreign parts. If they will stand by us, well. If not, let them ascend their high places. Let Ahab build them an altar, and Hananiah a Levite sing at the sacrifice, and let them at once set themselves apart, and say, we have no portion in the God of Israel." From every side the cry arose, "Heaven preserve us from heresy. We have still a portion in the Israel of God." The authority of Tiberius was then recognized as supreme. But when Babylon was afterwards politically severed from the Roman power in the west, and fell to the Persians, the prince of the captivity represented the Jews of the east as their independent head. Footnotes. 10-1 So named from its situation at the mouth of the Baetica, a canal between the Tigris and the Euphrates. 13-1 The cherem was most fearful. The excommunicate was cursed with the curse of Joshua against Jericho, and the curse of Elisha against those that mocked him, and the curse of fiends of deadly power. Let nothing good come out of him, let his end be sudden, let all creatures become his enemy, let the whirlwind crush him, the fever and every other malady, and the edge of the sword smite him. Let his death be unforeseen and drive him into outer darkness, etc. There were 3 degrees of excommunication. The first was the casting out of the synagogue. The second the delivering over to Satan. And the third was the anathema proclaimed by priests with the sounding of trumpets. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 14. Chapter 3. The Talmud adopted by the Jews, Gentile and Christian hostility to it. Ruchlin demands toleration for it. Distinctions made in its teachings. Schools of Shammai and Hillel, Bath Kol, Pharisees, Sadducees and other sects, Kabbalists, Metatron, Summary. The canon of the Talmud was closed in a season of opulence and repose. The scene, however, speedily changed. Gloomy and dark days were followed by a storm of persecution from the Persian kings, Yezdegerd and Thuruz the tyrant. When their schools were closed, the Jews clung more closely to the Talmud than before. Although never formally adopted by any general council, all Orthodox Jews embraced it as supplying a want which they felt. And they have adhered to it through long and dreary centuries, despite the rapt empire of the Inquisitor, and the contempt and scorn of a hostile world. The Talmud has been periodically banned, and often publicly burned, from the age of the Emperor Justinian till the time of Pope Clement VIII in the year 1569. The famous Jewish library in Cremona was plundered, and 12,000 copies of the Talmud and other Jewish writings were committed to the flames. The first to demand for toleration and free inquiry was Ruchlin. He declared that he must oppose the destruction of a book written by Christ's nearest relations. Before him, Pascal II, Caliph of Cordova in the close of the 10th century, had ordered it to be translated into Arabic. This was done by Rabbi Joseph, the son of Rabbi Moses, surname clad in Asaph, because he was thus mainly clad when his great talents were discovered. The study of the Talmud has the most fascinating influence over the Jewish mind, and if the latter is to be comprehended, the teaching which molds it must be clearly understood. Everyone, say the Jews, is bound to. p. 15. Divide the time of his study into 3 parts. 1/3 is to be devoted to the written law, 1/3 to the Mishnah, and 1/3 to Gemara. To understand it in accordance with the 13 rules of interpretation, it takes a study of 7 hours a day for 7 years. They also say that it is lawful to rend a man ignorant of the Talmud like a fish. Israelites are forbidden to marry the daughter of such an one, as she is no better than a beast. To obviate arguments furnished by its own statements against itself, Its adherents make a distinction between its decisions, its directions, and its legendary or romance part, a distinction fatal to its claim of equality with Holy Scripture. For this legendary part some of the ancient rabbis had but little respect. Rabbi Joshua, son of Levi, says, "He who writes it down will have no part in the world to come. He who explains it will be scorched." Maimonides also says, if one of the many foolish rabbis reads these histories and proverbs, he will find an explanation unnecessary, for to a fool everything is right, and he finds no difficulty anywhere. And if a really wise man reads them, there will be but two ways in which he will consider them. If he takes them in their literal sense and thinks them bad, he will say, "This is foolishness," and in so doing he says nothing at all against the foundation of the faith. The school of Shammai, who lived before Christ, and the school of Hillel, who lived till 81 years after his birth, are brought forward as contradictory in their decisions. Like Christian leaders in later times, they strove to exceed each other in learning and pride. Hillel, called also the second Ezra, was born in Babylon. His thirst for learning drove him to Jerusalem. He was so poor he could not feed the porter of the college. So he used to listen at the window. One bitter winter's night he became insensible from cold, and the snow falling fast covered him up. The darkened window called the attention of those inside to his form without. He was then brought in, and soon restored to life. It is said that afterwards he had 16 scholars, 30 of them were fit that the divine glory should rest upon them, as it did upon Moses, 30 others were worthy that the sun should stand still for them, as it did for Joshua, and 20 were of a form between. By a sort of legal fiction both schools are supposed to be of equal authority. A Bath Kol One, or Holy Echo, supplying the place of departed Urim and Thummim, and of oracles long since silent, is related to have established it. There came forth a divine voice at Jabin and said, "The words of the one and of the other are the words of the living God, but the certain determination of the thing is according to the school of Hillel, and whosoever transgresseth against the words of the school of Hillel deserves death." Both schools were Pharisees, but the school of Shammai was the straighter sect. 7 different shades of character have been attributed to the Pharisees of that age. There were those who served God from selfishness, those who did it gradually, those who avoided the sight of women, saints in office, those who asked you to name some duty which they ought to perform, those who were pious from fear of God, and those who were pious from love of Him. Popular opinion differed with regard to them. Some said, if only 2 men be saved, one must be a Pharisee. While others defined a Pharisee to be one who wished to play the part of Zimri, and to claim the reward of Phinehas. The great opponents of the Pharisees were the Sadducees, who arose BC 300, and were followers of Athos and Zadok. Their rivals on the other side were the Nehestinites, who returned. p. 17. From the captivity versed in the doctrines of Zoroaster, in astrology, and in the influences of good and bad spirits. To these might be added the Misraimites, who studied the Kabbalah, especially in reference to the forms of letters. The letter Kaf, for example, has its curved part severed from its stem, and thus teaches that the door of mercy is always open to the penitent. The numerical value of the letters of Messiah and Nachash serpent is the same, and this teaches that the Messiah will overcome the serpent. The Kabbalists believe nothing but what they received. Their teachers received from the prophets received from angels, David from the angel Michael, Moses from Metatron, Isaac from Raphael, Shem from Nephiel, and the angels themselves from God. The Metatron is the connecting link between the divine spirit and the world of matter. Resembles the demiurgos of the Gnostics. It is the mystical expression for the being that forms a union between God and nature, or, as the Zohar puts it, between the king and the queen. There were also the Essenes, who allegorized the law. The Hellenists, who mixed it up with Greek philosophy. The Therapetists, who thought supreme happiness to be meditation. The political Herodians. The Zealots. And other petty sects who formed the great mass of the people, and held either with or against the 2 great schools. The decisions of both schools are remarkable for their concise brevity. A phrase suggests many thoughts, a single word awakes a whole train of reasoning. A German writer has said of the Mishnah, that it is a firmament of telescopic stars, containing many a cluster of light, which no unaided eye has ever resolved. Some of its sayings are of touching beauty. Such are the words of Rabbi Tarfon, "The day is short, the labor vast. But the laborers are slothful, though the reward is great, and the master of the house presseth for dispatch." Some of its sayings are extravagant, some are loathsome, and some are blasphemous. But mixed up as they are together, they form an extraordinary monument of human industry, human wisdom, and human folly. Footnotes. 15-1 Some think he died 12 years BC. 16-1 The Jews say that the Holy Spirit spake to the Israelites during the tabernacle by Urim and Thummim, and under the first temple by the prophets, and under the second by Bath Kol. The Bath Kol, which signifies daughter voice or daughter of a voice, was a kind of divine intimation, which was as inferior to the oracular voice proceeding from the mercy seat as a daughter is supposed to be inferior to her mother. It was said to be preceded by a clap of thunder. This however, was not always the case. The Talmud relates that Rabbis Jochanan and Simeon ben Lashish wished to see the face of Rabbi Samuel, a Babylon rabbi. "Let us follow," said they, the hearing of Bath Kol. They journeyed near a school, and as they were passing it they heard a boy reading from the book of Samuel the words, "And Samuel died." Observing this, they concluded that their friend was dead. And it so happened that news was soon brought to them that Rabbi Samuel of Babylon had died. The Bath Kol seems to have been a sort of donation practiced with the words of scripture, like the sorts for Gileani among the heathen. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 18. Chapter 4. Casuistry, predestination and free will, hereditary sin, philosophy, geography, astronomy, astrology, amulets and charms, sorcery, legends. The Talmud contains a system of casuistry in reference to the doctrines of intention and legal uncleanness. It proportions responsibility to the amount of intention, and thereby hands over tender consciences to the control of the rabbis. It proportions legal uncleanness to every degree of approach to the source, or, as it is called, the father of uncleanness. And this again renders necessary continual appeals to the decision of the rabbis. Predestination and free will are both taught. Everything is in the hands of heaven, except the fear of heaven. All things are ordained of God, but men's actions are their own. When men wish to sin they are enjoined to go to a place where they are unknown, and to clothe themselves in black so as not to dishonor God openly. Hereditary sin was denied by the early Kabbalists, but the later ones allow it. They believe that all souls were created in Adam, and therefore partake of his fall. Every kind of philosophy known at the time of its compilation is more or less introduced into the Talmud, and all more or less tinged with Magian superstition. From this superstition grew the mysticism of the Jewish schools. All the arts and sciences, under some form or other, are alluded to, and references to historical events abound in its pages. When it is dangerous to speak of them openly they are veiled under some figure known only to the initiated. Some observations seem to anticipate future discoveries. The Antipodes are hinted at. And the Jerusalem Gemara says that Alexander the Great, p. 19, was represented as carrying a ball in his hand because he believed the figure of the earth to be a sphere. Astronomy is fully discussed. The planets are moving stars. Mercury is the star. Venus, splendor. Mars, redness. Jupiter, brightness. Saturn, the Sabbath star. The signs of the zodiac have the same names as are now used. The galaxy is the river of light. Comets are burning arrows. And it is said that when a comet passes through Orion it will destroy the world. A certain Ishmaelite merchant is related to have invited Rabbah to come and see where the heavens and the earth touched. Rabbah took his bread basket and placed it on the window while he prayed. He afterwards looked for it, but it was gone. He asked the Ishmaelite, "Are there thieves here?" "No," he replied, "but your basket has gone up in the revolving of the firmament. It will return if you wait till morning when the revolving of the firmament returns where it was before." Astrology is treated as a science which governs the life of man. The stars make men wise. The stars make them rich. A man born on the first day of the week will excel in only one quality. He that is born on the second day will be an angry man, because on that day the waters were divided. He that is born on the third day of the week will be rich and licentious, because on it the herbs were created. He that is born on the fourth day will be wise and of good memory, because on that day the lights were hung up. He that is born on the fifth day will be charitable, because on that day the fishes and fowls were created. He that is born on the Sabbath he also shall die, because on his account they profaned the great Sabbath day. Rabbi Barshila says, he shall be eminently holy. Rabbi Fanina says, the influence of the stars makes wise, the influence of the stars makes rich, and Israel is under the influence of the stars. Rabbi Jochanan says, Israel is not under the influence of the stars. Whence is it proved? Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Jeer. X. 2. The heathen, but not Israel. N. P. 20. Eclipse of the sun is an evil sign to the nations of the world. An eclipse of the moon is an evil sign to Israel, for Israel reckons by the moon, the nations of the world by the sun. It is also said that Saturn and Mars are the baleful stars, and whosoever begins a work, or walks in the way, when either of these two is in the ascendant, will come to sorrow. Astrology naturally leads to amulets and charms. Amulets are divided into two classes, approved and disapproved. An approved amulet is one that has cured 3 persons, or has been made by a man who has cured 3 persons with other amulets. Charms are abundantly provided against accidents. For bleeding of the nose let a man be brought to a priest named Levi, and let the name Levi be written backwards. If there be not a priest, get a layman, who is to write backwards on a pipi shila bar sumki, or tomdle bemi sif, tomdle bemi pagam. Or let him take a root of grass, and the cord of an old bed, and paper, and saffron, and the red part of the inside of a palm tree, and let him burn them together, and let him take some wool, and twist 2 threads, and dip them in vinegar, and roll them in ashes, and put them into his nose. Or let him look out for a stream of water which flows from east to west, and let him go and stand with one leg on each side of it, and let him take with his right hand some mud from under his left foot, and with his left hand from under his right foot, and let him twist 2 threads of wool, and dip them in the mud, and put them into his nose. If a man be bitten by a mad dog, he must die, unless some remedy be found for him. Abai says he must take the skin of a male adder, and write upon it, I am the son of the woman, and upon the skin of a male adder, write against thee, Canticleerus, but some say, Canticleerus, Lord of hosts. Amen. Selah. Let him also cast off his clothes, and bury them in a graveyard for 12 months of a year. Then let him take them up, and burn them in the furnace, and let him strew the ashes at the parting of the roads. And during these 12 months let him only drink out of a brass tube, lest he see the phantom form of the demon, and he be endangered. This was done by Abba. He. 21. The son of Marth, he is Abba, the son of Manjumi. His mother made him a tube of gold. Magic naturally follows from such teaching. Abba Benjamin says, if leave had been given to see the hurtful demons, no creature could stand before them. Abai says, they are more than we are, and stand against us, like the trench round a garden bed. Rabbani says, everyone had 1,000 on his left hand, and 10,000 on his right hand. Rabba says, the want of room at the sermon is from them, the wearing out of the rabbi's clothes is from their rubbing against them, bruised legs are from them. Whosoever wishes to know their resistance, let him take ashes passed through a sieve, and strew them in his bed, and in the morning he will see the marks of a cock's claws. Whosoever wishes to see them, let him take the inner covering of a black cat, the kidney of a firstborn black cat, which is also the kidney of a firstborn, and let him burn it in the fire, and powder it, and fill his eyes with it, and he will see them. And let him pour the powder into an iron tube, and seal it with an iron signet, lest they steal any of it, and let him seal the mouth of it, lest any harm ensue. Rabbi Barabai did thus, and he was harmed, but the rabbis prayed for mercy, and he was healed. Arts of sorcery are attributed to the rabbis. They are represented as having the eye power to create both men and melons. One of them is said to have changed a woman into an ass, and ridden the ass to market, when another sorcerer changed the ass again into a woman. This sorcery is traced to Abraham, who was said Gen XXV. 6. To have given his sons gifts. These gifts are stated to have been the arts of sorcery. Legends abound everywhere throughout the Talmud. Rabbi Judah said, Rav said, everything that God created in the world, he created male and female. And thus he did with Leviathan, the piercing serpent, and Leviathan the crooked serpent. He created them male and female. But if they had been joined together they would have desolated the whole world. What then did the Holy One do? He enervated the male Leviathan, and slew the female, and P. 22. Salted her for the righteous in the time to come, for it is said, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea Isa. XXVII. 1. Likewise, with regard to Behemoth upon 1,000 mountains, he created them male and female. But if they had been joined together they would have desolated the whole world. What then did the Holy One do? He enervated the male behemoth, and made the female barren, and preserved her for the righteous in the time to come. That period is to be a season of great feasting. The liquor to be drunk will be apple wine of more than 70 years old. The cup of David alone will hold 121 logs. It is related that a rabbi once saw in the desert a flock of geese so fat that their feathers fell off, and the rivers flowed in fat. He said to them, shall we have part of you in the world to come? One of them lifted up a wing and another a leg, to signify the parts we shall have. We should otherwise have had all parts of these geese, but that their sufferings are owing to us. It is our iniquities that have delayed the coming of the Messiah, and these geese suffer greatly by reason of their excessive fat, which daily increases, and will increase till the Messiah comes. Rabbi Bar Chama says that he once saw a bird so tall, that its head reached to the sky and its legs to the bottom of the ocean. The water in which it stood was so deep that a carpenter's axe which had fallen in 7 years before had not then reached the bottom. He also saw a frog as large as a village containing 60 houses. This frog was swallowed up by a serpent, and this serpent in turn by a crow. This crow flew, and perched upon a cedar, and this cedar was as broad as 16 wagons abreast. There is also an account of a fish which was killed by a worm. This fish, when driven ashore, destroyed 60 cities, and 60 cities ate of it, and 60 cities salted it, and with its bones the ruined cities were rebuilt. Stories are also told of fishes with eyes like the moon, and of horned fishes 300 miles in length. These stories are intended to confirm the text, they that go down to the sea in ships, that do business in great waters. These. P. 23. see the works of the Lord and his wonders in the DPSCVII. 23:24. To illustrate the statement of Amos EU. 8. A story is told of a lion which one of the Caesars wished to see. At 400 miles distance he roared, and the walls of Rome fell. At 300 miles he again roared, and all the people fell on their backs, and their teeth fell out, and Caesar fell off his throne. Caesar then prayed for his removal to a safer distance. The Talmud informs us that a young unicorn, one day old, is as large as Mount Tabor. Consequently Noah had great difficulty in saving an old one alive. He could not get it into the ark, so he bound it by its horn to the side of the ark. At the same time Og, king of Bashan being one of the antediluvians, was saved by riding on its back. We are further informed that he was one of the giants who came from the intermarriage of angels with the daughters of men. His footsteps were 40 miles long, and one of his teeth served to make a couch for Abraham. When the Israelites came against him under the command of Moses, he inquired the size of their camp, and hearing that it was 3 miles in extent he tore up a mountain of that size, to hurl it upon them. Grasshoppers were, however, sent to bore holes in it, so that it fell over his head onto his neck. His teeth also grew and were entangled in the rocks, as the psalmist says, "Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly." PSE. 7. He is also said to be identical with Eliezer the servant of Abraham, and to have been, like Enoch, translated to paradise. This account, however, differs widely from the statements of the Jerusalem Targum on the Book of Numbers XXI. 34. The Talmud affirms that Adam was made from dust of all parts of the earth, and that he was created with 2 faces, as it is written, "Thou hast beset me behind and before." PS. CXXXIX. 5. The rabbis further state that he was formed in 2 parts, one male and one female. His height before his fall reached to the firmament, but after his fall God put his hand upon him, and compressed him small. In the 10th hour after he was made, he sinned. And in the 12th he was driven out of paradise. Abraham, p. 24, is said to have put Sarah into a box when he brought her into Egypt, that none should see her beauty. At the custom house toll was demanded. Abraham said he was ready to pay. The custom house officers said, "Thou bringest clothes." He said, "I will pay for clothes." They said, "Thou bringest gold." He said, "I will pay for gold." They said, "Thou bringest silk." He said, "I will pay for silk." They said, "Thou bringest pearls." He said, "I will pay for pearls." They said, "Thou must open the box," whereupon her splendor shone over the whole land of Egypt. Abraham, it is also said, had a precious stone hung around his throat, on which when the sick looked they were healed. Some of the laws of Sodom are also recorded. Whosoever cut off the ears of another's ass received the ass till his ears grew again. Whosoever wounded another, the man wounded was obliged to pay him for letting his blood. When the judges of Sodom attempted to fine Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, because another man had wounded him, he took up a stone and flung it at the judge. He then bid the judge to pay the fine, which was now due to him for letting his blood, to the man who had first wounded him. There was a public bed in Sodom, and every stranger was obliged to lie in it. If his legs were too long for it, they were cut off. And if too short, they were racked out to the proper length. When a traveler came, each citizen, to show his hospitality, was obliged to give him a coin with his name written upon it. The traveler was then deprived of bread. And when he had died of starvation, the citizens came, and each one took back his own money. The Sodomites thus kept up their character for liberality. At the giving of the law, the Israelites stood at the lower part of the Mount Exod. 6. 17. Rabbi Avidni says, "These words teach us that the Holy One, blessed be He, turned the mountain over them like a tub, and said to them, If ye will receive the law, well. But if not, there shall be your grave." Rabbi Joshua says, "As each commandment proceeded from the mouth of the Holy One, Israel retreated 12 miles, and the ministering angels lead them back, as p. 25. It is said, the angels of the host did flee at pace 1, ps. LXVIII. 13. Do not read they fled but they led. Rabbi Eliezer, the Modite says, that Jethro heard the giving of the law. For when the law was given to Israel his voice went from one end of the world to the other, and all the nations of the world were seized with trembling in their temples, and they repeated to him, as it is said, In his temple doth every one speak of his glory. PSXXIX. 9. The question is asked, why are the Gentiles deafened? Because they did not stand on Mount Sinai, for in the hour the serpent came to Eve he communicated defilement, which was removed from Israel when they stood on Mount Sinai. Rav Acha, the son of Rava, said to Rav Shai, How then is it with proselytes? He answered, Although they went not there, their lucky star was there, as it is written, With him that standeth here with us this day before the Lord our God, and also with him that is not here with us this day do it. XXIX. 15. In the hour that Moses ascended up on high, the ministering angel said before God, O Lord of the world, what business has he that is born of woman amongst us? He answered, He is come to receive the law. They replied, This desirable treasure, which has been treasured up from the 6 days of creation, 674 generations before the world was created, dost thou now wish to give it to flesh and blood? What is man that thou art mindful of him? And the Son of Man that thou visitest him? O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, who hast set thy glory above the heavens. The Holy One said to Moses, Return them and answer. He said, O Lord of the world, I fear, lest they burn me with the breath of their mouth. God said, Lay hold on the throne of my glory, and return them and answer. For it is said, He that holdeth the face of his throne, he spreadeth his cloud over him. Job XXVI 9. Rabbi Nahum says, this means that the Almighty spread some of the glory of the Shekinah and his cloud over him. He then said, Lord. P. 26. Of the world, what is written in the law that thou art about to give me? I am the Lord thy God, that brought thee out of Egypt. He then said, Did ye angels ever go down into Egypt and serve Pharaoh? Why then should ye have the law? Again, what is written therein? Thou shalt have none other God. He then asked them, Do ye then dwell among the uncircumcised, that ye should commit idolatry? Again, what is written? Remember the Sabbath day to sanctify it. Do ye then do any work so as to need rest? Again, what is written? Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. Have ye then any work that would lead to this sin? Again, what is written? Honor thy father and mother. Have ye then got any father or mother? Again, what is written? Thou shalt do no murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Have ye then envy or the principle of evil amongst you? Immediately they praised the Holy One, blessed be He. Wonderful stories are told of the manna. The manna is said to have fallen from heaven, accompanied by showers of pearls and precious stones. It tasted to everyone according to his desire. If one wished for fat fowl, so it tasted. If another wished for honey, so it tasted, as it is written, Thou hast lacked nothing. Doid Zai. 7. The Targum of Jonathan goes on to inform us, at the 4th hour, when the sun had waxed hot upon it, it melted and became streams of water, which flowed away into the great sea, and wild animals that were clean, and cattle, came to drink of it, and the children of Israel hunted and ate them. Exod. XVI. 21. It is further related that the Queen of Sheba, whom the rabbis labor to prove to have been the king of Sheba, wished to test the knowledge of Solomon, who had written on botany from the cedar to the hyssop. She once stood at a distance from him with 2 exquisite wreaths of flowers, one artificial, one natural. They were so much alike that the king looked perplexed, and the courtiers looked melancholy. Observing a swarm of bees on the window, he commanded it to be opened. All the bees lighted on the natural and not one on the artificial. P. 27. Re. Solomon is also said to have sent Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, to bind Ashmedai, the king of the devils. After deceiving the devil with wine, he made him reveal the secret of the shamir, or little worm, which can cleave the hardest stone. And by the aid of this worm Solomon built the temple. The devil afterwards asked Solomon for his signet ring, and when he had given it to him, the devil stretched one wing up to the firmament and the other to the earth, and jerked Solomon 400 miles away. Then, assuming the aspect of Solomon, he seated himself on his throne. After Solomon had again obtained it, he wrote, What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? Eccles. I. 3. A story is told of Nebuzaradan, that he saw the blood of Zacharias bubbling in the court of the priests. When he asked what it meant, he was informed that it was the blood of bullocks and lambs. When he had ordered bullocks and lambs to be slain, the blood of Zacharias still bubbled and reeked above theirs. The priests then confessed that it was the blood of a priest and prophet and judge, whom they had slain. He then commanded 80,000 priests to be put to death. The blood, however, still continued to bubble. God then said, Is this man, who is but flesh and blood, filled with pity towards my children, and shall not I be much more? So he gave a sign to the blood, and it was swallowed up in the place. Of the 80,000 priests slain, none was left but Joshua the son of Jozdek, of whom it is written, Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Zip. E. 2. Of Titus it is said, that he was unclean in the temple, and with the blow of his sword rent the veil, which flowed with blood. To punish him, a gnat was sent into his brain, which grew as large as a dove. When his skull was opened, the gnat was found to have a mouth of copper, and claws of iron. Footnotes. 25-1. The rabbis make 2 changes in this verse. They changed kings into angels, and fled into lead. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 28. Chapter 5. Evil spirits, Satan, good angels, heaven, hell, the resurrection, last judgment. Talmud contradicts Holy Scripture, estimate of Gentiles. precepts for the sons of Noah, river sambation, stories of rabbis, proverbs, ideas of God, the Messiah, his kingdom, allusions to the Lord Jesus Christ and his disciples. The Talmud teaches that evil spirits, devils, and goblins are the offspring of Adam. They are said to fly about in all directions. They know from eavesdropping what is to come in the future. Like men, they eat, drink, and multiply. They are represented as playing men awkward tricks. One is stated to have broken a vessel of wine, and to have spilt it on the ground. The rabbis, however, afterwards compelled him to pay for it. People are forbidden to ride oxen fresh from the stall, as Satan dances between their horns. Men are forbidden to salute their companions by night, lest they may turn out to be devils. It is also commanded to shake out, before drinking, some water from the vessel, to get rid of what is sipped by the evil spirits. It is, however, permitted to consult Satan on weekdays. He is considered identical with the angel of death. But he is described as having no power over those engaged in reading the law. Many of his devices are related in the Talmud, whereby he made learned men leave off reading, and then he snatched away their souls. A story is told of the attempt of Rabbi Joshua, the son of Levi, and Satan to deceive each other about the rabbi's place in paradise. Finally, however, Satan managed to take away his life, whereupon the voice of Elijah is heard shouting in heaven, "Make room for the son of Levi! Make room for the son of Levi!" The angel of death is represented as standing at the head of the dying man. He has a drawn sword. He 29. In his hand, on which is a drop of gall. When the dying man sees it, he shudders and opens his mouth. The angel of death then lets it fall into his mouth. The sick man dies, corrupts, and becomes pale. 3 days the soul flies about the body, thinking to return to it, but after it sees the appearance of the face changed, it leaves it and goes away. Rabbi Isaac moreover asserts that a worm in a dead body is as painful as a needle in a living one. The Talmud still further states that there are 3 voices continually heard: the voice of the sun as he rolls in his orbit, the voice of the multitudes of Rome, and the voice of the soul as it leaves the body. The rabbis, however, prayed for mercy on the soul, and this voice has ceased. Instances are also given of men overhearing the conversations of the dead, and receiving profit from them. A man is said to have heard one girl tell another in the grave, that those who sow their crops at a particular time would find their harvests fail. So he took care to sow at another time, and he had an abundant yield. It is also said that every Friday evening a second soul enters into the bodies of men, and that it remains to the end of the Sabbath, when it departs. The evidence of the second soul is shown by an increased appetite for eating and drinking. Good angels are stated to be daily created out of the stream of glory which flows from the throne of God, and they sing a new song, and vanish. As it is said, they are new every morning, great is thy faithfulness, Lamb. 23. The rabbis also say that angels are created out of every word which proceeds from the mouth of God. As it is said, by the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. P.S. XXXII. 6. The following story is also told: in the hour when Nimrod, the impious, cast Abraham into the midst of the fiery furnace, Gabriel said before the blessed God, Lord of the world, I will go down and cool the flame, and deliver the righteous one from the furnace of fire. The blessed God said to him, I am the one in this world, and he is the one in his world. It becomes the one to deliver the he. 31. But as the blessed God deprives no one of his reward, he said, Thou shalt be deemed worthy to deliver 3 of his posterity. Rabbi Simon, the Shilonite, taught, in the hour that Nebuchadnezzar, the impious, cast Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah into the midst of the fiery furnace, where Kenel, the prince of Hail, stood up before the blessed God, and said, I will go down and cool the flame, and deliver the righteous ones from the furnace of fire. To him said Gabriel, The power of the blessed one is not so, since thou art the prince of Hail, and everyone knows that waters quench fire. But I, the prince of fire, will go down and cool inwardly, and heat outwardly, and I will make a wonder within a wonder. To him said the blessed God, Go down. In the same hour Gabriel began and said, And the truth of the Lord entereth forever. P.S. CXVII. 2. Israelites are forbidden to pray in the Syriac language, as the angels do not understand it, and consequently cannot carry their petitions to God. Gabriel, however, is acquainted with it, as he taught Joseph the 70 languages. The chief of all the angels is said to be the Metatron, who once received fiery blows from another angel called Amphiel. With regard to heaven, the rabbis teach that Egypt is 400 miles long and broad, the Morian's land is 60 times larger than Egypt, and the world is 60 times larger than the Morian's land. Heaven is 60 times larger than the world, and hell is 60 times larger than heaven. It follows that the whole world is but a potnet to hell. Yet some say that hell is immeasurable, and some say heaven is immeasurable. It was a pearl amongst the sayings of a rabbi. Heaven is not like this world, for in it there is neither eating, nor drinking, nor marriage, nor increasing, nor trafficking, nor hate, nor envy, nor heartburnings. But the just shall sit with their crowns on their heads, and enjoy the splendor of the Shekinah. Hell is said to have 3 doors, one in the wilderness, one in the sea, and one in Jerusalem. In the wilderness, as it is written, they, and all that appertained to them, went down alive into the pit. Num XVI 33. In the sea, as it is written, out of P. 31. The belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. Jonah E. 3. In Jerusalem, as it is written, saith the Lord, whose fire is in Zion, and his furnace in Jerusalem is XXXI. 9. The school of Rabbi Ishmael teaches that the fire in Zion is hell, and his furnace in Jerusalem is the gate of hell. It is also taught that the fire of hell has no power over the sinners in Israel, and that the fire of hell has no power over the disciples of the wise. It is again, however, stated that the Israelites who sin with their bodies, and the Gentiles who sin with their bodies, go to hell, and are punished there 12 months. After their body is wasted, and their soul is burned, the wind scatters them beneath the souls of the righteous, as it is said, and ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. Malud 3. Heretics, deniers of the resurrection, Epicureans, and other sinners, shall be perpetually tormented, where their worm dieth not and their fire is not quenched. The doctrine of the resurrection is clearly taught in the Talmud. As for the last judgment, the following story is told, said Antoninus to Rabbi, the body and soul can free themselves from judgment. How? The body can say, the soul sinned from the time it separated from me, while I lay as a stone in the grave. And the soul can say, the body sinned from the time it separated from me, while I flew in the air as a bird. He replied, I will give you an example to which it is like. It is like a king of flesh and blood, who has a beautiful garden, and in which are pleasant fruits, and he placed 2 watchmen therein, of whom one was lame and the other was blind. Said the lame to the blind, I see pleasant fruits in the garden. Come, and let me sit upon thee, and let us go and eat. The lame sat upon the blind, and they went and ate. After some days the Lord of the garden came, and said, Where are my pleasant fruits? The lame said, I have no legs to go to them. The blind said, I have no eyes to see them. What did he do? He set the lame upon the blind, and judged them as one. So the blessed God will return the soul into the body, and judge them as one, as it is said, he shall call to P. 32. The heavens from above and to the earth, that he may judge his people. PSA 4. He shall call to the heavens from above, that is the soul. And to the earth that he may judge his people, that is, the body. After the resurrection men will live without work or weariness of body, their houses shall be of precious stones, and their beds of silk, and the rivers shall run with wine and perfumed oil. The Talmud often contradicts Holy Scripture. It says that they are in error who believe the Bible account of the sins of Reuben, of the sons of Eli, and of the sons of Samuel. It allows usury, and the passing of children through the fire to Molech. It permits deceit, and supports it with the text, with the pure thou wilt show thyself pure, and with the froward thou wilt show thyself unsavory. 2 Sam XXII 27. The rabbis teach hatred of Christians and Gentiles. Instead of saying, in the presence of the king, they are taught to say, in the presence of the dog. A Jew, who bears witness against another Jew before a Gentile is publicly cursed. A Jew is also released from any oath he may swear to a Gentile. It is only permitted a Jewish physician to heal Gentiles for the sake of the fee, or for the practice of medicine, but it is not allowed to save their lives in seasons of danger. Their marriage is no marriage. And their butcher's meat is only carrion. It is wrong to invite them into a Jewish house. And it is not needful to restore what they have lost. When the ox of a Jew gores the ox of a Gentile, the Jew is free. But if the ox of a Gentile gores the ox of a Jew, the Gentile must pay the full cost. A story is told of a rabbi who sold a number of palm trees to a Gentile, and afterwards ordered his servant to cut off some pieces from them. For, he said, the Gentile knows their number, but he does not know whether they be thick or thin. The precepts binding on the sons of Noah are stated to be 7, to do justice, to bless the name of God, to avoid idolatry, to flee from fornication and adultery, to abstain from bloodshedding, not to rob, and not to eat a member of a living animal. An account is given of the river. P. 33. Paragraph continues Sumbation, which flows with stones all the 6 days of the week, but rests on the Sabbath day. Examples are also furnished of gluttony and drunkenness. The paunches of some rabbis grew so big, that, when put together, a pair of oxen might go between them. A story is also related of one rabbi killing another in a drunken fit, and then working a miracle which restored him to life. In the following year he again invited the rabbi to drink with him, but he declined, on the ground that miracles are not wrought every day. Instances are also given of the anguish of rabbis in the prospect of death. They express themselves as being without hope of salvation, and as having the fear of hell before them. Proverbs everywhere abound in the Talmud, and they are generally replete with shrewd observation. The world subsists through the breath of school children. Whosoever transgresses the words of the scribes is guilty of death. Whosoever teaches a statute before his teachers ought to be bitten by a serpent. There is no likeness between him who has bread in his basket and him who has none. Rather be the head of foxes than the tail of lions. This, however, again appears as rather be the tail of lions than the head of foxes. The righteous in the city is its splendor, its profit, its glory. When he is departed, there is also departed the splendor, the profit, and the glory. Licentiousness in a house is as a worm in a pumpkin. This reappears as violence in a house is as a worm in a pumpkin. Thy friend has an acquaintance, and the acquaintance of thy friend has also an acquaintance. The discreet, the unworthy child of a good father is called vinegar, the son of wine. If the opportunity fails the thief, he deems himself honest. The cock and owl await together the morning dawn. Says the cock to the owl, light profits me, but how does it profit thee? Youth is a crown of roses, old age a crown of thorns. Many preach well, but do not practice well. It is the punishment of liars, that men don't listen to them when they speak truth. Every man who is proud is an idolater. 'Tis slanderous to murder. Whosoever humbles himself, God exalts him. Whosoever exalts himself, God humbles him. P. 34. Paragraph continues. Men see every leprosy except their own. He who daily looks after his property finds a coin. The post does not honor the man, but the man the post. Every man is not so lucky as to have 2 tables. Not what thou sayest about thyself, but what thy companions say. The whole and broken tables of the law lie in the yard. The salt of money is almsgiving. He who walks 4 cubits in the lot of Israel is sure of being a child of the world to come. The plague lasted 7 years, and no man died before his time. Let the drunkard only go, he will fall of himself. Be rather the one curse than the one person. This world is like an inn, but the world to come is the real home. The child loves its mother more than its father, it fears its father more than its mother. Repent one day before thy death. If your God is a friend of the poor, why does he not support them? A wise man answered, their case is left in our hands, that we may thereby acquire merits and forgiveness of sin. The house that does not open to the poor shall open to the physician. He who visits the sick takes away 1/60th part of their pain. Descend a step in choosing a wife. Mount a step in choosing a friend. An old woman in a house is a treasure. Whosoever does not persecute them that persecute him, whosoever takes an offense in silence, whosoever does good from love, whosoever is cheerful under his sufferings, they are friends of God, and of them says the scripture they shall shine forth as the sun at noonday. R. Phineas, son of Jair, said industry brings purity, purity, cleanness, cleanness, holiness, holiness, humbleness, humbleness, fear of sin, and fear of sin, partaking of the Holy Ghost. Ideas of God are gathered from the occupations which the authors of the Talmud assign to him. The day contains 12 hours. The first 3 hours the Holy One, blessed be he, sits and studies the law. The second 3 hours he sits and judges the whole world. When he sees that the world deserves destruction, he stands up from the throne of judgment, and sits on the throne of mercy. The third 3 hours he sits and feeds all the world, from the P. 35. Horns of the unicorns to the eggs of the vermin. And the fourth 3 hours he sits and plays with Leviathan, for it is said the Leviathan, whom thou hast formed to play therein. PSA 26. Rabbi Eliezer says the night has 3 watches, and at every watch the Holy One, blessed be he, sits and roars like a lion. For it is said, the Lord shall roar from on high and utter his voice from his holy habitation. He shall mightily roar upon his habitation. GRXXV 30. Rabbi Isaac, the son of Samuel, says in the name of Rav, the night has 3 watches, and at every watch the Holy One, blessed be he, sits and roars like a lion, and says, woe is me, that I have laid desolate my house, and burned my sanctuary, and sent my children into captivity amongst the nations of the world. He is described as praying, and wearing phylacteries, and as having a special place for weeping. Before the destruction of the temple the Holy One played with Leviathan, but since the destruction of the temple, he plays with it no more. In the hour that the Holy One remembers his children who are dwelling with suffering amongst the nations, he lets 2 tears fall into the great ocean, the noise of which is heard from one end of the world to the other, and this is an earthquake. It is further said that he braided the hair of Eve, and shaved the head of Sennacherib. He is represented as keeping school, and teaching the sages. To this school the devils come, especially Ashmedai, the king of the devils. In the discussions that take place, God is said to be sometimes overcome by the wiser rabbis. The question of the Messiah is often brought forward. The tradition of the school of Elijah is that the world is to stand 6,000 years, 2,000 years confusion, 2,000 years the law, and 2,000 years the days of the Messiah. It is further said that the time for the coming of the Messiah is expired. Rav says the appointed times are long since past. The Jerusalem Talmud relates that it happened once to a Jew, who was standing plowing, that his ox lowed before him. An Arab was passing, and heard its voice. He said, O Jew! O Jew! P. 36. Unyoke thine ox, and loose thy plowshare, for the temple is desolate. It lowed a second time, and he said, O Jew! O Jew! Yoke thine ox and bind thy plowshare, for King Messiah is born. The Jew said, What is his name? He answered, Menahem. He asked again, What is his father's name? He said, Hezekiah. He asked, From whence is he? He replied, From the royal palace of Bethlehem, Judah. The Jew then went and saw him. But when he went again, the mother told him that the winds had borne the child away. The Babylon Talmud further states that Rabbi Joshua, the son of Levi, found Elijah standing at the door of the cave of Rabbi Simeon ben Yoshai, and said to him, Shall I reach the world to come? He answered, If this Lord will. Rabbi Joshua, the son of Levi, said, I see too, but I hear the voice of three. He also asked, When will Messiah come? Elijah answered, Go and ask himself. Rabbi Joshua then said, Where does he sit? At the gate of Rome. And how is he known? He is sitting amongst the poor and sick, and they open their wounds, and bind them up again all at once, but he opens only one, and then he opens another, for he thinks, Perhaps I may be wanted, and then I must not be delayed. Rabbi Joshua went to him, and said, Peace be upon thee, my master, and my lord. He answered, Peace be upon thee, son of Levi. The rabbi then asked him, When will my lord come? He answered, Today PSXCV. 7. It is said that the bones of those who reckon the appointed time of the Messiah must burst asunder. Again, however, it is said that Elias told Rabbi Judah, the brother of the pious Rabbi Salah, that the world would not stand less than 85 years of Jubilee, and in the last year of Jubilee the son of David will come. It is further stated that there are first to be the wars of the dragon, and of Gog and Magog, and that God will not renew the earth until 7,000 years are completed. The rabbis also say that when the Messiah comes to fulfill the prophecy of riding upon an ass Zekix. 9. The ass shall be one of 100 colors. As for the return of the 10 tribes to their own land, the p. 37. Paragraph continues. Talmud in some places asserts it, and in some places denies it. But it is said that in the days of the Messiah all the Gentiles shall become proselytes to the Jewish faith. The rabbis are divided as to the continuance of the Messiah. Some say 40 years, some 70 years, some 3 generations, and some say that he will continue as long as from the creation of the world or the time of Noah up to the present time. Others say that the kingdom of the Messiah will endure for thousands of years, as, when there is a good government, it is not quickly dissolved. It is also said that he shall die, and his kingdom descend to his son and grandson. In proof of this opinion Isaiah XLII 4 is quoted, He shall not fail, nor be discouraged, till he have set judgment in the earth. The lives of men will be prolonged for centuries, he will swallow up death in victories XXV. 8. And the child shall die 100 years old is LXV. 20. The Talmud applies the former verse to Israel, the latter verse to the Gentiles. The men of that time will be 200 ells high. This is said to be proved by the word upright Lev XXVI. 13. Upright being applied to the supposed height of man before the fall. Moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun. And the light of the sun shall be sevenfold, as the light of 7 days is XXX. 26. The land of Israel will produce cakes and clothes of the finest wool. The wheat will grow on Lebanon as high as palm trees. And a wind will be sent from God to reduce it to fine flour for the support of those who gather it. As it is said with the fat of kidneys of wheat Deutsch. XXXII. 14. Each kidney will be as large as the kidneys of the fattest oxen. To prove that this is nothing wonderful, an account is given of a rapeseed, in which a fox once brought forth young. These young ones were weighed, and found to be as heavy as 60 pounds of cypress weight. Lest these statements should be thought a contradiction of the verse, there is no new thing under the sun. Eccles. 9. The rabbis say that it is just like the growth of mushrooms, toadstools, and the delicate mosses on the branches of trees. Grapes will also grow most luxuriantly. And in every cluster. P. 38. There will be 30 jars of wine. Jerusalem will be built 3 miles high. As it is written, it shall be lifted up. 10. The gates of the city will be made of pearls and precious stones, 30 ells high and 30 ells broad. A disciple of the rabbis once doubted whether precious stones could be found so large. And shortly afterwards, he saw an angel with similar stones, as he was out at sea. On his return to land he related what he had seen to Rabbi Jochanan. Whereupon the rabbi said, Thou fool, if thou hadst not seen, thou hadst not believed. Thou mockest the words of the wise. He then lifted up his eyes upon him, and he was made an heap of bones. Said our Samuel, the son of Nachman, our Johanan said, 3 shall be called by the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he. And these are the righteous, the Messiah, and Jerusalem. The righteous, as is said, is XLII. 7. The Messiah, as it is written, Jer. XXII. 6. And this is his name whereby he shall be called, the Lord our righteousness. Jerusalem, as it is written, Ezer. XLVII. 35. It was round about 18,000 measures, and the name of the city from that day shall be the Lord is there. In the later editions of the Talmud, the allusions to Christ and Christianity are few and cautious, compared with the earlier or unexpurgated copies. The last of these was published at Amsterdam in 1645. In them our Lord and Savior is that one, such an one, a fool, the leper, the deceiver of Israel, etc. Efforts are made to prove that he is the son of Joseph Pandira before his marriage with Mary. His miracles are attributed to sorcery, the secret of which he brought in a slit in his flesh out of Egypt. His teacher is said to have been Joshua, the son of Perkiah. This Joshua is said to have afterwards excommunicated him to the blast of 400 ram's horns, though he must have lived 70 years before his time. 40 days before the death of Jesus, a witness was summoned by public proclamation to attest his innocence, but none appeared. He is said to have been first stoned, and then p. 39. Hanged on the eve of the Passover. His disciples are called heretics, and opprobrious names. They are accused of immoral practices. And the New Testament is called a sinful book. The references to these subjects manifest the most bitter aversion and hatred. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 40. Chapter 6. Rabbinic Logic. The rabbis have laid down 13 rules for the interpretation of the Talmud. These rules form their system of logic. They are as follows. 1. Light and heavy, an argument from the less to the greater. An example is furnished in the case of Miriam Num v. 14. If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. The argument is here drawn from the conduct of man, the less, to that of God, the greater. The owner of an ox is also fined more for his beast if it gores his neighbor's beast than if it eats his neighbor's corn. Since the tooth only means sustenance for the stomach, but the horn means mischief. 2. Equality, an argument from the similarity or identity of words and impressions. An example is furnished in Deutsch XP. 12. If thy brother, an Hebrew man, or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him free from thee. In the 18th verse, when this law is again referred to, the man only is mentioned. But as the woman was mentioned in the former verse, it is concluded that the law applies equally to both. 3. The building of the Father, an argument from the statements in A1 placing the law to other passages, which are similar. An example is furnished in Exod. Z. 16, where servile work is forbidden during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and the conclusion is drawn at servile. P. 41. Work is equally forbidden in all festivals of the same nature. This mode of argument is also applied to B, 2 places in the law, where one place refers to the general proposition, and another to particulars arising out of it. An example is furnished in Lev XP. 1. Where a man with an issue is unclean, but in the 4th verse this uncleanness is limited to his bed and his seat. 4. Universal and particular. Where there is a general and a special statement, the special binds the general. An example is furnished in Lev. I. 2. If any man of you bring an offering unto the Lord, ye shall bring your offering of the cattle, even of the herd and of the flock. Cattle in the Hebrew behemah includes both wild and tame. The special terms herd and flock limit the offering to domesticated animals. 5. Particular and universal, or argument from the special to the general. An example is furnished in Deutsch. XXII. 1. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox, or his sheep go astray, thou shalt in any case bring them again unto thy brother. In the 3d verse, it is further commanded to restore all lost things of thy brothers. Hence it is concluded, not only his ox or his sheep, but that everything, which he has lost is to be restored to him. 6. Universal, particular and universal. Where there are 2 universal statements with a particular statement between, the particular limits the universals. An example is furnished in Deutsch. 0. 26, where, speaking of the application of the second type, it is said, thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. For oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth. The special limitation, between the 2 universal permissions, is to productions of the land of Canaan. 7. The general that requires the special, and the special that requires the general. An example is furnished in Lev XVII. 13. Whatsoever man hunteth and catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof, and cover it with dust. The word p. 42. Paragraph continues. Cover or hide is again used in Gen. XVII. 17. Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I shall do? The conclusion is drawn, that cover is restricted to the blood being hidden under dust, and not put in any vessel. Again Exod. G. 2. Sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine. From this verse females might be included with males. Reference is made to Deuteronomy XV. 19. Where it is found all the firstling males. Still it is obscure, when there are firstling females, about the males born afterwards. Reference is made to Exod. XXXIV. 19. All that openeth the matrix is mine. Here all firstborn are allowed. This, however, is too general, and it is again restricted by the word males. And as this is too general, it is again restricted by all that openeth the matrix. 8. Whatsoever is taught in general and something special is mentioned, it is mentioned to strengthen the general rule. An example is furnished in Lev XX. 2. Where the worship of Moloch is forbidden, and the penalty for the sin is death. The conclusion drawn is, that such mention of a special form of idolatry confirms the prohibition of all idolatry. 9. When there is a general rule and also an exception, the exception lightens and does not aggravate. An example is furnished in the command Exod. XXI. 12. He that smitteth a man so that he die, he shall surely be put to death. The exception is, whoso killeth his neighbor ignorantly doit. 6. 4, 5. He can flee to one of the cities of refuge. 10. When there is a general rule, and an exception not agreeing with the general rule, the exception both lightens and aggravates. An example is furnished from the plague of leprosy Lev Ge. 3. When the hair is turned white. The head and beard are excepted 29th verse lest there be gray hairs, this lightens. But if on the head and beard there be yellow thin hair, it is a dry skull, this aggravates. 11. When there is an exception from a general rule to establish a new matter, the new matter cannot be brought under the general rule again, unless it be mentioned in the p. 43. Text. An example is furnished from the eating of holy things Lev XXII. 10-13. The priest, any soul bought with his money, and he that is born in his house, may eat of it. This is the general rule. If the priest's daughter be married to a stranger, she may not eat of them. This is the exception. This exception would have remained if she continued married to a stranger, or had a child, or had not returned to her father's house. Therefore a new law is provided, that in the event of none of these things happening, she may again eat of the holy things. 12. Things that teach from the subject, and things that teach from the end. An example is furnished from the 8th commandment, thou shalt not steal. This law, if applied to man stealing or kidnapping, implies capital punishment. The reason given is from its following, thou shalt do no murder, and thou shalt not commit adultery, two laws which, if violated, entailed death. The second part of this rule applies to things that teach from the end. What is meant by the end is a matter of dispute. Some say it means the final cause of logicians. Others say it means something in the end or conclusion of the law itself. If it be the latter, an example is furnished from the case of the leper's house Lev Zib. 45. And he shall break down their house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house. These directions teach that houses made of mud are accepted. 13. When two texts contradict each other, until a third be found to decide between them. An example is furnished in Gen I. 1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. It is again written, Gen E. 4. In the day that the Lord made the earth and the heavens. The question now arises, which did he make first? The answer is found in Isaiah XLVII. 13. Mine hand also hath laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand hath spanned the heavens. The conclusion is drawn that he made both at once. Another instance is the discrepancy in the census of Israel. In 2 Sam XXIV. 9 the number stated is 800,000. In 1 Quran. XXI. 5 the number is said. p. 44. To have been 1100,000. The difference of 300,000 is accounted for by referring to 1 Quran. XXVII. 1, where it is said that 24,000 served the king every month. These men, when multiplied by the months, make 288,000. And the 12,000 which waited upon the 12 captains raise the number to 300,000, the amount required to reconcile the two statements. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 45. Chapter 7. Suggestion before reading the tracts. Remarks. Conclusion. In reading the following tracts it should be borne in mind that the meaning in many places is more implied than expressed. 1. Often an idea is taken for granted, which patient continuance in reading can alone bring to light. The subjects to which these tracts refer should first be studied in the Bible, because after such study the restless subtlety of the rabbis in binding heavy burdens on men's shoulders can be more fully discerned. It is desirable to look on these writings from this point of observation. Just as on some mountain top one looks not only at the gold which the morning sun pours on grass and flower, but also on the deep valley where the shadows still rest, that one may the more sensibly feel how glorious the sun is. The whole theory of this second, oral law, has arisen from intention to the express statement of Moses, these words the 10 Commandments the Lord spake unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a great voice, and he added no more doit. V. 22. And it tends to nullify the declaration of the Targum of Jonathan ben Uzziel, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. And he has taken the law upon himself to keep it. Isaiah X. 6. In concluding this introduction it is perhaps well to p. 46. Glance briefly at the age in which the Talmud grew to its present state. It was a period of great activity and thought. Old systems of debasing superstition were breaking up and passing away. A new faith had arisen to regenerate man. The 5 centuries which followed the appearing of our Savior in this world were filled with religious and political events, which still make their vibrations felt. From the destruction of Jerusalem and the overthrow of the Jewish polity, an impulse was given to those political changes which have since gone on without intermission amongst the nations of the earth. From the overthrow of the Jewish temple an impulse was given to religious earnestness, which, often from wrong, often from right motives, has increased, and will increase, as the great consummation draws nigh. While the rabbis were laboring at their gigantic mental structure, while generation after generation of their wisest and most patriotic men were accumulating materials to build the tower, which became a beacon to their countrymen for all time, the Christian church was not idle. By their writings and eloquence the fathers were gathering the treasures of patristic lore, which have descended to us. While rabbis were discoursing in the synagogues of Tiberias and Babylon, Christian orders were preaching in the basilicas of Constantinople and Rome. They have all gone from this mortal scene, but their thoughts are handed down, so that we may converse with them, though they are no longer on earth. We can hear their wisdom, we can see their errors, we can almost fancy we behold their forms, so that, being dead, they yet speak. Since they ceased from their labors empires have risen and fallen, countless millions of our race have vanished into eternity, and left their bodies to molder into dust. But their teachings still live on, to influence immortal souls for good or woe. Doubtless their departures from the Word of God prepared a way and furnished matter for the numerous heresies and lawless deeds which form a great portion of the history of mankind. From their errors sprang at least in part the Quran. This and kindred themes. P. 47. However, open up an interminable vista, leading us away from the Talmud itself. It is better now to conclude this introduction. And with what more suitable words can I close than with those drawn from the wisdom of the fathers? It is not incumbent upon thee to complete the work, neither art thou free to cease from it. If thou hast studied the law, great shall be thy reward. For the master of thy work is faithful to pay the reward of thy labor, but know that the reward of the righteous is in the world to come. Footnotes 45-1 The expression they is often used in the phraseology of the Talmud to denote either certain officials, or else the sages and men of authority. The exact reference can only be gathered from the context. So again with the use of he. In such cases the expression he generally refers to the decision on a particular occasion. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 48, p. 49. Selections from the Talmud. The Mishnah. Treatise I. Recitation of the Shema, blessings, Rabbi Gamaliel, exemptions from the recitation, prayers, differences between the schools of Shammai and Hillel, reverence for the temple. Chapter I. 1. From what time do we recite the Shema? 1. In the evening. From the hour the priests 2. Enter the temple to eat their heave offerings, until the end of the first watch. 3. The words of Eliezer. But the sages say until midnight. Rabbi Gamaliel says, until the pillar of the morn ascend. It happened that his sons came from a banquet. They said to him, we have not yet said the Shema. He said to them, if the pillar of the morn be not yet ascended, you are bound to say it. And not only this, but all that the P. 50. Paragraph continues. Sages say, till midnight, they command till the pillar of the morn ascend. The burning of the fat and members they command till the pillar of the morn ascend. And all offerings, which must be eaten the same day, they command till the pillar of the morn ascend. If so, why do the sages say until midnight? To withhold man from transgression. 2. From what time do we recite the Shema in the morning? When one can discern betwixt blue and white, our Eliezer says betwixt blue and leaf green. And it may be finished until the sun shine forth. Our Joshua says until the third hour. 1. For such is the way of royal princes to rise at the third hour. He who recites Shema afterwards loses nothing. He's like a man reading the law. 3. The school of Shammai say that in the evening all men are to recline when they recite the Shema, and in the morning they are to stand up. For it is said, when thou liest down and when thou recessed up. 2. But the school of Hillel say, that every man is to recite it in his own way. For it is said, when thou walkest by the way. 3. If so, why is it said, when thou liest down and when thou recessed up? When mankind usually lie down, and when mankind usually rise up. Artarfin said, I came on the road, and reclined to recite the Shema according to the words of the school of Shammai, and I was in danger of robbers. The sages said to him, thou wast guilty against thyself, because thou didst transgress the words of the school of Hillel. 4. In the morning 2 blessings are said before the Shema, and 1 after it. And in the evening 2 blessings before and 2 after it, 1 long and 1 short. 4. Where the sages have said to lengthen, none is allowed to shorten. And to shorten none is allowed to lengthen, to close, none is allowed not to close. Not to close, none is allowed to close. 5. We commemorate the departure from Egypt at night. P. 51. Said Eliezer, son of Azariah, truly I am a son of 70 years, and was not clear that thou shouldst say the departure from Egypt at night until the son of Zoma expounded, that thou mayest remember the day when thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of thy life. 1. The days of thy life are days. All the days of thy life include the nights. But the sages say, the days of thy life are this world. All the days of thy life include the days of the Messiah. Footnotes. 49-1 Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, etc. Doid Vine. 4-9, Sign. 13-21. NXP. 37-41. Evening prayer might be said after 12:30 p.m. Acts X. 9. It is abundantly evident from the Zohar that the ancient Jews understood that in the Shema there was a confession of the doctrine of the Trinity and unity, 3 persons in one God. Hear, O Israel, Jehovah our God is one Jehovah. By the first name in this sentence, Jehovah, is signified God the Father, the head of all things. By the next words, our God, is signified God the Son, the fountain of all knowledge. And by the second Jehovah, is signified God the Holy Ghost, proceeding of them both. To all which is added the word one, to signify that these 3 are indivisible. But this mystery shall not be revealed until the coming of Messiah. The Zohar gives also an imperfect illustration of this great truth, by saying that the Trinity and unity is like the human voice, which is composed of 3 elements, warmth, air, and vapor. 49-2 Priests who are legally unclean. Lev XXII. 7. 49-3 The Mishnah begins the night at 6 p.m., and divides it into 3 watches of 4 hours each. 50-1 The Mishnah begins the day at 6 a.m. The third hour is 9 a.m. 50-2 Doid Vi. 7. 50-3 Ibid. 50-4 A long blessing begins and ends with Blessed art thou, O Lord. A short blessing only ends with these words. 51-1 Doit. XVI. 3. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 2. 1. If one who is reading in the law when the time comes for praying intends it in his heart, he is free. But if not, he is not free. At the end of this section one salutes out of respect, and responds. But in the middle of a section he salutes from fear, and responds. Such are the words of Armea. Arjuda says, in the middle he salutes from fear, and responds out of respect. At the end he salutes out of respect, and repeats peace to every man. 2. The intervals of the sections are between the first blessing and the second, between the second and here, O Israel. Between here and it shall come to pass. 2. Between and it shall come to pass and he said. 3. Between and he said and it is true and certain. 4. Said our Judah, between and he said and it is true and certain, none is to plus. Our Joshua, the son of Korka, said, why does the section here, etc., precede, and it shall come to pass? That one may take on himself the kingdom of heaven, before he take on himself the yoke of the commandments. Why does the section and it shall come to pass precede and he said? Because and it shall come to pass may be practiced by day and by night. 5. But and he said, etc., only by day. 6. P. 52. 3. He who recites the Shema so as not to be audible to his own ears, is legally free. 1. Our Jose says he is not legally free. If he has said it without grammar and pronunciation, our Jose says he is legally free. Our Judah says he is not legally free. If he said it irregularly, he is not legally free. In recitation he mistook, he must recommence from the place where he mistook. 4. Laborers may recite the Shema on the top of a tree, or of a wall, but they are not allowed to do so with a prayer. 2. 5. a bridegroom is exempted from reciting the Shema on the first night of marriage, and even until the expiration of the Sabbath if the marriage be not complete. It happened that Rabbi Gamaliel recited on the first night. His disciples said to him, "Hast thou not taught us, our master, that a bridegroom is exempted from reciting Shema on the first night?" He said to them, "I will not hear you, to deprive myself of the yoke of the kingdom of heaven even 1 hour." 6. Here Gamaliel bathed on the first night of his wife's death. His disciples said to him, "Hast thou not taught us, our master, that a mourner is forbidden to bathe?" He said to them, "I am not like all other men. I am infirm." 7. When his slave Tabby died, he received visits of condolence. His disciples said to him, "Hast thou not taught us, our master, that visits of condolence are not to be received for slaves?" He said to them, "My slave Tabby was not like all other slaves, he was upright." 8. The bridegroom who wishes to recite the Shema on the first night may recite it. Our Simeon, the son of Gamaliel, said, "Not everyone who wishes to affect the pious reputation can affect it." Footnotes 51-2 Doid Zai 13-21 51-3 Num XV 37-41 51-4 Because in Jir X 10 it is written, "But the Lord is the true God," etc. 51-5 Doid Zai 19 51-6 Because it says, "That ye may look upon it," that is the fringe, Num XV 39 52-1 When the expressions free or not free are used, they refer to the decisions of the Levitical law. So also is it with the expressions clean or unclean. 52-2 That is the 18 blessings called Amida. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 53. Chapter 3. 1. He whose dead lies before him is exempted from reciting the Shema, from the prayer, and from the phylacteries. 1. Those who carry the bier, and those who relieve them, and those who relieve the relief, those who go before the bier, and those who follow it, who are required for the bier, are exempted from reciting the Shema. But those not required for the bier are bound to recite it. Both parties are exempted from the prayer. 2. When they have buried the dead, and return, if they have time to begin and end the Shema before they reach the rows of mourners, they must begin; if not, they must not begin. Of those standing in the rows, the inner mourners are exempt, but the outer ones are bound to recite the Shema. 3. Women, slaves, and children, are exempt from citing the Shema, and also from the phylacteries. But they are bound in the prayer, the sign on the doorpost, and the blessing after food. 4. A man in his legal uncleanness is to meditate in his heart on the Shema, but he is not to bless before, or after it. After his food he blesses, but not before it. Our Judah says he blesses both before and after it. If one stand in prayer, and recollect that he is in his uncleanness, he is not to pause, but to shorten the prayer. If he has gone down into the water to bathe, too, and can go up, dress, and recite the Shema before the sun shines forth, he is to go up, dress, and recite it. But he is not to cover himself with foul water, or with water holding matter in solution unless he has poured clean water to it. How far is he to keep from foul water, or excrement? 4 cubits. 6. A man in his uncleanness with a running issue, a woman in her uncleanness, during separation, and she who perceives the need of separation, require the bath. But our Judah exempts them. Footnotes 53-1 Phylacteries consist of texts of scripture and Zod. G. 2-10, 11-17. Doi Phi. 4-9, 13-22, written on parchment and enclosed in a leather box. They are bound by thongs round the left arm and forehead. 53-2 Lev XV. 16. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 54. Chapter 4. 1. The morning prayer may be said till noon. Our Judah says until the 4th hour. The afternoon prayer until the evening. Our Judah says until half the afternoon. The evening prayer has no limit, and the additional prayers may be said all day. Our Judah says until the 7th hour. 2. Ardni Junia, son of Hakana, used to pray when he entered the lecture room, and when he went out he said a short prayer. The sages said to him, "What occasion is there for this prayer?" He said to them, "When I enter I pray that no cause of offense may arise through me. And when I go out I give thanks for my lot." 3. Rabbi Gamaliel said, one must daily say the 18 prayers. Our Joshua said a summary of the 18. Our Akiva said, if his prayer be fluent in his mouth, he says the 18. If not, a summary of the 18. 4. Our Eliezer said, if one make his prayer fixed, his prayer is not supplications. Our Joshua said, if a man travel in dangerous places, let him use this short prayer, say, O Lord, thy people, the remnant of Israel. At every stage of their journey let their wants be before thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord, who hearest prayers. 5. If one ride on an ass, he must dismount. If he cannot dismount, he must turn his face. And if he cannot turn his face, he must direct his heart towards the Holy of Holies. 6. If one be seated in a ship, or in a carriage, or on a raft, he must direct his mind towards the Holy of Holies. 7. Our Eliezer, the son of Azariah, said the additional 2 prayers are only to be said in a public congregation. But the sages say, if there be a public congregation, or no public congregation. Our Judah said in his name, in every place where there is a public congregation, individuals are exempted from additional prayers. Footnotes. 54-1 or transgression. 54-2 called Musaf. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 55. Chapter 5. 1. Men should not stand up to pray, except with reverential head. The pious of ancient days used to pause 1 hour before they began to pray, that they might direct their hearts to God. Though the king salute, one must not respond. And though a serpent wind itself around his heel, one must not pause. 2. Men should mention the heavy rain in praying for the resurrection of the dead, and entreat for rain and the blessing for the year, and the distinction between the Sabbath and weekday one is to be said in the prayer, who graciously bestows knowledge. 2. Our Akiva said, the distinction between the Sabbath and weekday is to be said in a 4th prayer by itself. Our Eliezer said, in the thanksgivings. 3. He who says, thy mercies extend to a bird's nest, or, for goodness be thy name remembered, or he who says, we give thanks, we give thanks. 3. Is to be silenced. If a man pass up to the ark where the rules of the law are kept and make a mistake, another must pass up in his stead. Nor may he in such a moment refuse. Where does he begin? From the beginning of the prayer in which the other made the mistake. 4. He who passes up to the ark is not to answer amen after the priests, lest his attention be distracted. If no other priest be present but himself, he is not to lift up his hands to bless the congregation. But if he be confident that he can lift up his hands, and then resume, he is at liberty. 5. If a man pray, and make a mistake, it is a bad sign for him. If he be a representative of a congregation, it is a bad sign for his constituents, for a man's representative is like himself. They say of Arhanina, son of Joseph, that when he prayed for the sick, he used to say, this one will live, or this one will die. The sages said to him, how do you know? He said to them, if my prayer be fluent in my mouth, I know that he is accepted. But if not, I know that he is lost. Footnotes. 55-1 prayer called Havdalah. 55-2 called Tron and Hadayah. 55-3 as if there were 2 gods. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 56. Chapter 6. 1. How do we bless for fruit? For fruit of a tree say, who createth the fruit of the wood, excepting the wine? For wine say, who createth the fruit of the vine? For fruits of the earth say, who createth the fruit of the ground, excepting the morsel? For the morsel say, who bringeth forth bread from the earth? For vegetables say, who createth the fruit of the ground? Our Judah says, who createth various kinds of herbs? 2. He who blessed the fruits of the tree thus, who createth the fruits of the ground? He is free. And for the fruits of ground said, who createth the fruits of the wood? He is not free. But, in general, if one say, who createth everything? He is free. 3. For the thing which groweth not from the earth, say, who createth everything? For vinegar, unripe fruit, and locusts, say everything. For milk, cheese, and eggs, say everything. Our Judah says, whatever be, which had its origin in a curse, is not to be blessed. 4. If a man have before him many kinds of fruits. Our Judah says, if there be among them of the 7 kinds, he is to bless them. But the sages say he may bless whichever of them he pleases. p. 57. 5. If one bless the wine before food, the blessing frees the wine after food. If he bless the tippet before food, it frees the tippet after food. If he bless the bread, it frees the tippet. But the blessing on the tippet does not free the bread. The school of Shammai say, neither does it free the cookery. 6. If several persons sit down to eat, each blesses for himself. But if they recline together, one blesses for all. If wine come to them during food, each blesses for himself. But if after food, one blesses for all. He also blesses for the incense, even though they have not brought it till after the repast. 7. If they first set salt food before a man and bread with it, he blesses the salt food, which frees the bread, as the bread is only an appendage. The rule is, whenever there is principle and with it appendage, the blessing on the principle frees the appendage. 8. if one have eaten figs, grapes, and pomegranates? He must say after them 3 blessings. The words of Rabban Gamaliel. But the sages say, 1 blessing, a summary of the 3. Our Akiva says, if one have eaten boiled pulse, and it is his meal, he must say after it 3 blessings. Whoever drinks water for his thirst, says, by whose word everything is, etc. Our Tarfin says, who createst many souls, etc. Footnotes 56-1 mention Deutt. V. 8. The Jews make a distinction between Bikurim, the fruits of the soil in their natural state, and Thermith, the fruits in a prepared state, such as oil, flour, and wine. The first fruits were always brought to Jerusalem with great pomp and display. The Talmud says that all the cities which were of the same course of priests gathered together into one of the cities which was a priestly station, and they lodged in the streets. In the morning he who was chief among them said, Arise, let us go up to Zion to the house of the Lord our God. An ox went before them with gilded horns, and an olive crown was on his head. This ox was intended for a peace offering to be eaten by the priests in the court of the sanctuary. The pipe played before the procession until it approached Jerusalem. When they drew near to the holy city, the first fruits were crowned and exposed to view with great ostentation. Then the chief men and the high officers and the treasurers of the temple came out to meet them and receive them with honor. And all the workmen in Jerusalem rose up in their shops, and thus they saluted them, O our brethren, inhabitants of such a city, ye are welcome. The pipe played before them till they came to the Temple Mount. Every one, even King Agrippa himself, took his basket upon his peak. 57, shoulder, and went forward till he came to the court. Then the Levites sang, I will exalt thee, O Lord, because thou hast lifted me up, and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. PSXXX. 1. While the basket is still on his shoulder, he says, I profess this day to the Lord my God. And when he repeats the passage, a Syrian ready to perish was my father Deutt. XXVI. 3-5. He casts the basket down from his shoulder, and keeps silent while the priest waves it hither and thither at the southwest corner of the altar. The whole passage of scripture being then recited as far as the 10th verse, he places the basket before the altar, he worships, and goes out. The baskets of the rich were of gold or silver. The baskets of the poor were of peeled willow. These latter, together with their contents, were presented to the priests in service. The more valuable baskets were returned to their owners. They used to hang turtle doves and young pigeons round their baskets, which were adorned with flowers. These were sacrificed for burnt offerings. The parties who brought the first fruits were obliged to lodge in Jerusalem all the night after they brought them, and the next morning they were allowed to return home. The first fruits were forbidden to be offered before the Feast of Pentecost, and after the Feast of Dedication. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 58. Chapter 7. 1. 3 men who have eaten together are bound to bless after food. If a person have eaten of that which is doubtful, whether it has paid tithe or not, or of first tithe from which the heave offering has been taken, or of second tithe or consecrated things, which have been redeemed. Also, if the waiter have eaten the side of an olive, or a Samaritan be of the party, the blessing must be said. But if one have eaten the untos, or first tithes from which the heave offering has not been taken, or consecrated things which are unredeemed, or if the waiter have eaten less than the size of an olive, or a stranger be of the party, the blessing is not to be said. 2. There is no blessing at food for women, slaves, and children. What quantity is required for the blessing at food? The size of an olive. Our Judah says the size of an egg. 3. How do we bless at food? If there be 3, one says, let us bless, etc. If 3 and himself, he says, bless ye, etc. If 10, he says, let us bless our God, etc. If 10 and himself, he says, bless ye, etc. So if there be 10 or 10 myriads. If there be 100, he says, let us bless the Lord our God, etc. If there be 100 and himself, he says, bless ye, etc. If there be 1,000, he says, let us bless the Lord our God, the God of Israel. If there be 1,000 in himself, he says, bless ye, etc. If there be a myriad, he says, let us bless the Lord our God, the God of Israel, the God of hosts, who sitteth between the cherubim, etc. If there be a myriad and himself, he says, bless ye, etc. etc. As he pronounces the blessing, so they respond after him, blessed be the Lord our God, the God of Israel, the God of hosts, who sitteth between the cherubim, for the food we have eaten. Our Hosea the Galilean says they should bless according to the number of the assembly. For it is written, bless ye God in the congregations, even the Lord from the fountain of Israel. 1. P. 59. Paragraph continues. Said our Akiva, what do we find in the synagogue? Whether many or few, the minister says, bless ye the Lord, etc. Our Ishmael says, bless ye the Lord, who is ever blessed. 4. When 3 have eaten together, they are not permitted to separate without blessing, nor 4 or 5. But 6 may divide into 2 parties, and so may any number up to 10. But 10 may not separate without blessing, nor any number less than 20 who can divide into 2 parties. 5. If 2 companies have eaten in one house, and some of each company be able to see some of the other company, they may join in the blessing. But if not, each company blesses for itself. They should not bless the wine till it has been mixed with water. The words of Eliezer. But the sages say they may bless it unmixed. Footnotes. 58 to 1 picosecond. LXVIII. 26. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 8. 1. These are the controversies relating to meals between the schools of Shammai and Hillel. The school of Shammai say, one must say the blessing of the day, and then bless the wine. But the school of Hillel say, one must say the blessing on the wine, and then bless the day. 2. The school of Shammai say, men must pour water on the hands, and then mix the goblet. But the school of Hillel say, the goblet must be mixed, and then water poured on the hands. 3. The school of Shammai say, one is to wipe his hands on the napkin, and lay it on the table. But the school of Hillel say, on the cushion. 4. The school of Shammai bless the light, the food, the spices, and the distinction of the day. But the school of Hillel bless the light, the spices, the food, and the distinction of the day. The school of Shammai say, who created the light of fire? But the school of Hillel say, creator of the lights of fire. 6. Men must not bless light and spices of idolatrous Gentiles, nor light and spices of corpses, nor light and spices. P. 60. Before an idol. They must not bless the light until they have enjoyed the light. 7. If one have eaten, and forgotten, and not blessed? The school of Shammai say, he must return to his place and bless. But the school of Hillel say, he may bless in the place where he recollects. How long is one obliged to bless? Until the food in his stomach be digested. 8. If wine came to the company, and there is but one goblet? The school of Shammai say that one must bless the wine and then bless the food. But the school of Hillel say that one must bless the food and then bless the wine. Men must answer amen when an Israelite blesses. But they must not answer amen when a Samaritan blesses, until the whole blessing be heard. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 9. 1. He who sees a place where signs were wrought for Israel, says, blessed be he who wrought signs for our fathers in this place. A place where idolatry has been rooted out, says, blessed be he who hath rooted idolatry out of our land. 2. On comets, earthquakes, lightnings, thunder, and tempests, say, blessed be he whose strength and might fill the world. On mountains, hills, seas, rivers, and deserts, say, blessed be he who made the creation. Our Judah says, when a man sees the great sea he is to say, blessed be he who made the great sea, when he sees it at intervals. On rains, and on good news say, blessed be he who is good and beneficent. On bad news say, blessed be the true judge. 3. He who has built a new house, or bought new furniture, says, blessed be he who has kept it alive, etc. One must bless for evil the source of good, and for good the source of evil. He who supplicates for what is past, such prayer is vain. How? His wife is pregnant, and he says, God grant that my wife may bring forth a male. P. 61. Child. Such prayer is vain. Or if one on the road hear the voice of lamentation in the city, and say, God grant that it may not be my son, my house, etc., such prayer is vain. 4. Whoever enters a fortified town must say 2 prayers, one at his entrance, and one at his departure. Ben Azai says, 4, 2 at his entrance, and 2 at his departure. He returns thanks for the past, and supplicates for the future. 5. Man is bound to bless God for evil, as he is bound to bless him for good. For it is said, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. One, with all thy heart means, with both thy inclinations, the evil as well as the good. With all thy soul means, even should he deprive thee of life. And with all thy might means with all thy wealth. Another opinion is, that with all thy might means whatever measure he metes out unto thee, do thou thank him with thy entire might. No man is to be irreverent opposite the eastern gate of the temple, for it is opposite the Holy of Holies. No man is to go on the mountain of the house with his staff, shoes, or purse, nor with dust on his feet, nor is he to make it a short cut, nor is he to spit at all. All the seals of the blessings in the sanctuary used to say, from eternity. But since the Epicureans perversely taught there is but one world, it was directed that men should say, from eternity to eternity. It was also directed that every man should greet his friend in the name, as it is said, And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee. 2. And it is also said, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. 3. And it is said, Despise not thy mother when she is old. 4. And it is also said, It is time for thee, Lord, to work, for they have made void thy law. 5. Our Nathan says, They have made void thy law because it is time for thee, Lord, to work. Footnotes. 60-1 Lest it be a blessing used on Mount Gerizim. 61-1 Doid by 5. 61-2 Ruth E. 4. 61-3 Judges Vi. 12. 61-4 Prague. XXII. 22. 61-5 Psalms CXIX. 126. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 62. Treatise 2. Chapter I. Plowing, gardening, dunning, removing stones, sowing, cutting down trees, fruits, buying and selling, territory included in the sabbatical year, produce governed by its laws, debts and payments. 1. How long do men plow in the field with trees on the eve of the sabbatical year? 1. The school of Shammai say, so long as it is useful for the fruit. But the school of Hillel say, till Pentecost, and the words of the one are near to the words of the other. 2. What is a field with trees? 3 trees to every 50 cubits square, if they be fit to produce a heap of figs worth 60 Italian minas. 2. On their account men can legally plow the earth for the whole 50 cubits square around them. Less than for these they may not legally plow, save the extent of the gatherer of fruit with his basket outwards. 3. Whether they be fruitless or fruitful, men may regard them as though they were fig trees. If they be fit to produce a heap of figs worth 60 Italian minas, on their account they may legally plow the whole 50 cubits square around them. Less than for these they may not plow, save what is absolutely needful. 4. 1 tree produced a heap of figs, and 2 trees did not produce it. Or 2 trees produced it, and 1 did not produce it. Men may not plow save what is absolutely needful for them, till they be from 3 to 9 in number. p. 63. Paragraph continues if they be 10. On their account men may legally plow around them the whole 50 cubits square. And also from 10 trees and upwards, whether they produce or do not produce it. As is said, in earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. 1. There is no need to say earing time and harvest in the sabbatical year, but earing time on the eve of the sabbatical year, when it is just entering on the sabbatical year. And harvest of the sabbatical year, which is proceeding towards the close of the sabbatical year. Rabbi Ishmael said, as the earing time mentioned in Zod. XXXIV. 21, is voluntary, so the harvest is voluntary, except the harvest of the Omer sheaf. 2. 5. If the 3 trees belong to 3 owners, they are reckoned as one, and on their account they may legally plow the whole 50 cubits square around them. And how much space must be between them? Rabban Simon, the son of Gamaliel, said, that a bullock with his plowing instruments may pass. 6. If there be 10 saplings dispersed in the 50 cubits square, on their account men may plow the whole 50 cubits square around them till New Year's Day. If they be placed in a row, or rounded like a crown, men may not plow save what is absolutely needful for them. 7. The saplings and the gourds are reckoned alike in the 50 cubits square. Rabban Simon, the son of Gamaliel said, for every 10 cucumbers in the 50 cubits square, men may plow the 50 cubits square around them till New Year's Day. 8. How long are they called saplings? Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Azariah, said, 3, till they can be used. Our Joshua said, till the age of 7 years. Our Akiba said, a sapling, as commonly named. A tree decays and sprouts afresh. When less than a handbreadth, it is a sapling. When more than a handbreadth, it is a tree. The words of Rabbi Simon. Footnotes. 62-1 It has been a subject of dispute when the sabbatical year began, whether in Nisan or Tishri. The weight of evidence is, however, in favor of the civil New Year's Day, which fell in Tishri September. 62-2 An Italian mina perhaps equal a denarius. If so, the heap would be worth about L1, 17, 6. 63-1 Exod. XXXIV. 21. 63-2 Lev. XXII. 10. The Omer or wave sheaf at the Passover, and the 2 wave loaves, at Pentecost, were to be made from grain grown in the field during the sabbatical year. It was also allowed to till sufficient land to pay taxes. 63-3 Lev 6. 23-25. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 64. Chapter 2. 1. How long may men plow in the white one, field on the eve of the sabbatical year? till the productiveness ceases. So long as men usually plow to plant cucumbers and gourds. Said our Simon, thou hast put the law in every man's hand. But men may plow in a grain field till the Passover, and in a field of trees till Pentecost. 2. Men may dung and dig amongst cucumbers and gourds till New Year's Day, and they may also do so in a parched up field. They may prune them, remove their leaves, cover them with earth, and fumigate them, till New Year's Day. Our Simon said, one may even remove the leaf from the bunch of grapes in the sabbatical year. 3. Men may remove stones till New Year's Day. They may gather the ears, they may break off branches, they may cut off the withered part till New Year's Day. Our Joshua said, as they may break off branches and cut off the withered part of the 5th year, so also they may do it in the 6th year. Rabbi Simon said, every time I am permitted to work amongst the trees, I am permitted to cut off the withered part. 4. Men may snare the saplings, and bind them, and cut them down, and make sheds for them, and water them, till New Year's Day. Our Eliezer, the son of Zadok, said, one may even water the top of the branch in the sabbatical year, but not the root. 5. Men may anoint unripe fruits, and puncture to them, till New Year's Day. Unripe fruit of the eve of the sabbatical year which is just entering on the sabbatical year, and unripe fruit of the sabbatical year which is proceeding to the close of the sabbatical year, they may neither anoint nor puncture. Rabbi Jehuda said, the place where it is customary to anoint them, they may not anoint them, because that is work. The place where it is not customary. P. 65. To anoint them, they may anoint them. Our Simon permitted it in trees because it is allowable in the usual culture of the trees. 6. Men may not plant trees, make layers, or engraft them, on the eve of the sabbatical year, less than 30 days before New Year's Day. And if one plant them, or make layers, or engraft them, they must be rooted out. Rabbi Judah said, every graft which does not cohere in 3 days has no more cohesion. Rabbi Jose and our Simon said in 2 weeks. 7. Rice, and millet, and poppy, and simsim, 1, which have taken root before New Year's Day, must be tithed for the past year, and are allowed for use in the sabbatical year. Otherwise they are forbidden in the sabbatical year, and must pay tithes for the following year. 8. Our Simon of Shezer said, Egyptian beans which are sown at first for seed are reckoned like them. Our Simon said, the large lentils are reckoned like them. Our Eliezer said, the large lentils which put forth pods before New Year's Day are also reckoned like them. 9. Onions, not for seed, and Egyptian beans, from which water is withheld 30 days before New Year's Day, must pay tithes for the past year, and they are allowed for use in the sabbatical year. Otherwise they are forbidden in the sabbatical year, and must be tithed for the coming year, and so also the produce of a rain field too, from which the water of irrigation is withheld on 2 occasions. The words of our mayor. But the sages say 3. 10. The gourds which stand over for seed? If they dry up before New Year's Day and are unfit for human food, it is lawful to let them remain on the sabbatical year. Otherwise it is forbidden to let them stand over on the sabbatical year. Their buds are forbidden in the sabbatical year, but they may be sprinkled with white dust. 3. The words of our Simon. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Jacob. P. 66. Paragraph continues forbade them. Men may irrigate rice in the sabbatical year. Rabbi Simon said, but they must not cut its leaves. Footnotes. 64 to 1 grain or cornfield. 64 to 2 with a pointed instrument covered with oil. 65 to 1 linseed. 65 to 2 rain field means a field irrigated with rainwater. 65 to 3 some suppose the meaning to be the permission to sprinkle with water a white or cornfield in which the gourds are growing. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 3. 1. How long may men bring out dung to the heap? Till the time comes for stopping work. The words of our mayor. Our Judah said, till its fertility 1, dry out. Our Jose said, till it hardens into a lump. 2. How much may men manure? As much as 3 times 3 heaps for 50 cubits square of 10 times 10 as panniers, each containing a letek. 2. They may increase the panniers, but they must not increase the heaps. Rabbi Simon said also the heaps. 3. A man may make for his field 3 times 3 heaps to the 50 cubits square. For more than these he must excavate the earth. The words of our Simon. But the sages forbid it, till he sink the heaps 3 handbreadths, or till he raise them 3 above the earth. A man may keep his manure in store. Rabbi Meir forbade it till he sink it 3 handbreadths, or till he raise it 3. If he have only a little, he may increase it and proceed in his work. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Azariah, forbade it till he sink the manure 3 handbreadths, or raise it 3, or till he place it on a rock. 4. He who stables his cattle in his field, he may make a pen twice 50 cubits square. He may remove 3 sides and leave the middle one. it follows that he has a stable 4 times 50 cubits square. Rabbi Simon, the son of Gamaliel, said 8 times 50 cubits square. If his whole field were 4 times 50 square cubits, he should leave a little space because of the observant eye, and p. 67. He may remove the manure of his cattle from the pen and put it into the middle of his field, as men usually manure. 5. A man may not open a quarry in the beginning of the sabbatical year in his field, unless there be already in it 3 heaps of stones measuring 3 cubits by 3 cubits, and in height 3 cubits, counting 27 stones in each heap. 6. A fence composed of 10 stones each, of weight sufficient for 2 men, may be removed. If the fence measure 10 handbreadths, less than this he may clear off. But he must leave it a handbreadth high over the ground. These words only speak of his own field. But from his neighbor's field he may take away what he pleases. These words speak of the time when one did not begin the work on the eve of the sabbatical year. But if one begin on the eve of the sabbatical year, he may take away what he pleases. 7. Stones shaken by the plow, or those covered and afterwards exposed, if there be amongst them 2 of a burden for 2 men, may be removed. He who removes stones from his field may remove the upper ones, 1, but he must leave those touching the earth. And so also from a heap of rubbish, or a heap of stones, one may take away the upper part, but must leave that which touches to the earth. If there be beneath them a rock, or stubble, they may be removed. 8. Men must not build terraces on the face of the hills on the eve of the sabbatical year, when the rains have ceased, because that is preparation for the sabbatical year. But one may build them in the sabbatical year, when the rains have ceased, because that is preparation for the close of the sabbatical year. And men must not strengthen them with mortar, but they may make a slight wall. Every stone which they can reach 3, with their hands and remove, they may remove. P. 68. 9. Shoulder stones may come from every place, and the contractor may bring them from every place. And these are shoulder stones, every one which cannot be carried in one hand. The words of our mayor, Rabbi Jose, said, shoulder stones, commonly so named, all that can be carried, 2, 3, upon the shoulder. 10. He who builds a fence between his own and public property may sink it down to the rock. What shall he do with the dust? He may heap it up on the public property, and benefit it. The words of our Joshua our Akiba said, as we have no right to enter public property, so we have no right to benefit it. What shall he do with the dust? He may heap it up in his own field like manure, and so also when he digs a well, or a cistern, or a cave. Footnotes. 66:1 The word translated fertility means literally sweetness. Some apply these words to the dung out of which the moisture has dried out, and it is then only reckoned as earth. Others apply them to the ground which has lost its fertility sweetness for want of rain. Job XXI. 33. The meaning is that no advantage must be gained from it in the approaching sabbatical year. 66:2 About 36½ gallons. 67:1 That is stones lying on the top of other stones. 67:2 The removal of stones touching the earth might loosen it, and become a kind of cultivation. 67:3 That is from the outside of the boundary wall, as in like manner his ears of corn might be plucked. An answer to envious remarks that he was preparing for cultivation. Jeer. Tom. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 4. 1. In olden times they used to say a man may gather wood, stones, and grass in his own field, just as he may gather that which is greater out of his neighbor's field. When transgressors increased, a rule was made that this one should gather from that one, and that one from this one, without benefit. And it is unnecessary to say that one could not promise fields to those who gather. 2. A field cleared of thorns may be sown in the close of the sabbatical year. If it be tilled or manured by cattle, it must not be sown in the close of the sabbatical year. If a field be twice plowed, 1. The school of Shammai say, its fruit must not be eaten in the sabbatical year. But the school of Hillel say, it may be eaten. The school of Shammai say, they must not eat its fruit on the sabbatical year, if the owner of it have benefit therefrom. But the school of Hillel say, men may eat it whether there be p. 69. Or be not benefit. Our Judah said, the words are contrary. That which is permitted by the school of Shammai is restricted by the school of Hillel. 3. Men may contract for cultivated fields from Gentiles on the sabbatical year, but not from Israelites. And they may strengthen the hands of the Gentiles on the sabbatical year, but not the hands of Israelites. And in saluting Gentiles they may ask after their peace for the sake of peace. 1. 4. If one thins olive trees, the school of Shammai say, only cut them down, and the school of Hillel say, one may root them out. But they both agree that for smoothing the earth the trees must be cut down. What is meant by thinning? Removing 1 or 2. What is meant by smoothing the earth? Removing 3 trees each by the side of the other. How is this understood? that one may root them out not only of his own field, but also when smoothing down the field of his neighbor. 5. He who cleaves olive trees must not fill in the vacuum with earth, but he may cover it over with stones or stubble. He who cuts down trunks of sycamore must not fill in the vacuum with earth, but he may cover it over with stones or stubble. Men must not cut down a young sycamore in the sabbatical year, because that is labor. Arjuda said, if as it is usually done it is forbidden, but one may allow it to be 10 handbreadths high, or cut it just above the ground. He who lops off vine tendrils, and cuts reeds? Jose the Galilean said, he must leave them in handbreadth high. Rabbi Akiba said, he may cut them as it is usual with an axe, or sickle, or saw, or with whatever he pleases. A tree that is split? Men may bind it round in the sabbatical year, not that it may cohere, but that its fissure may not extend. 7. From what time may the fruits of trees in the sabbatical year be eaten? Unripe fruits, when they are becoming transparent, may be eaten with a piece of bread in the field. When they are mellow, they may be gathered. P. 70. Into the house. And so also with all like them. During the remainder of the 7 years their tithes must be paid. 8. The sour grapes in which there is juice may be eaten with a piece of bread in the field. Before they rot they may be gathered into the house, and so also with all like them. During the remainder of the 7 years their tithes must be paid. 9. Olives from which men have collected the fourth of a log one, of oil to the sea. 2. They may be crushed and eaten in the field. When men can collect from them half a log, they may be pounded and used for anointing in the field. When those have been collected which have attained a third of their size they may be pounded in the field, and gathered into the house, and so also with all like them. During the remainder of the 7 years their tithes must be paid. But for the rest of all fruits of trees, as are their seasons for the laws of tithes, so are their seasons for the laws of the sabbatical year. 10. From what time may men not cut trees in the sabbatical year? School of Shammai say, every tree when it shoots forth. School of Hillel say, the locust trees when they put forth their curling tendrils, and the vines when they form berries, and the olives when they flower, and the rest of the trees when they shoot forth. But it is permitted to cut all trees, when they come to the season, for tithes. How much fruit should be in the olive tree to prevent its being cut down? A quarter cab. Rabban Gamaliel said, the whole depends on the size. Footnotes. 68 to 1 twice plowed implies the payment of tribute when the land was under foreign rule. Its cultivation was allowed for this purpose during the sabbatical year. So long as a foe could be resisted, it was not cultivated 1 Maccabi. 49. 69 to 1 GRXXIX. 7. 70 to 1 A log held the contents of 6 eggshells. 70 to 2 AC held about the third of a bushel. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 5. 1. The sabbatical year of white figs 3, is the second after the sabbatical year, because they produce in 3 years. Rabbi Judah said, the sabbatical year of the Persian figs is P. 71. The close of the sabbatical year, because they produce in 2 years. The sages replied to him, they only said white figs. 2. If one store eshalots in the sabbatical year? Our mayor said, there must be not less than 2 seas, 1, in height 3 handbreadths, and over them an handbreadth of dust. But the sages say, not less than 4 cabs, in height and handbreadth, and an handbreadth of dust over them, and they must be stored in a place where men tread. 2. 3. Eshalots over which the sabbatical year has passed. Rabbi Eliezer said, if the poor have gathered the leaves they are theirs. But if not, the owner must reckon with the poor. Our Joshua said, if the poor have gathered the leaves, they are theirs. But if not, the poor cannot reckon with the owner. 4. Eshalots of the eve of the sabbatical year which have entered on the sabbatical year, and summer onions, and also dye 3, plants of the best ground. The school of Shammai say, they are to be rooted out with wooden spades. But the school of Hillel say, with metal axes. But they both agree with regard to dye plants on rocky ground, that they are to be rooted out with metal axes. 5. From what time is it allowed to buy eshalots on the departure of the sabbatical year? Our Judah said, offhand. But the sages say, when the new ones become plenty. 6. These are the implements which the farmer is not permitted to sell in the sabbatical year, the plow with all its implements, the yoke, the shovel, and the goad. But he may sell the hand sickle, and the harvest sickle, and the wagon, with all its implements. This is the rule, all implements, the use of which may be misapplied for transgression, are forbidden. But if they be partly for things forbidden and partly for things allowed, they are permitted. 7. The potter may sell 5 oil jugs, and 15 wine. P. 72. Jugs, because it is usual to collect fruits from the free property. And if one bring more than these, it is allowed, and he may sell them to idolaters in the land, and to Israelites out of the land. 8. The school of Shammai say, a man must not sell a plowing heifer on the sabbatical year. But the school of Hillel allow it, because the buyer may slaughter her. He may sell fruits in the time of sowing, and may lend another man his measure, even if he know that the other man have a threshing floor, and he may change money for him, even if he know that he have laborers. But if it be openly declared, all is forbidden. 9. A woman may lend to her companion on the sabbatical year, even when she is suspicious, a flour sieve or a grain sieve, and an hand mill in an oven. But she is neither to pick the wheat nor grind it with her. A woman of a special religious society may lend to the wife one of an ordinary man a flour sieve, or a grain sieve, and may pick wheat, or grind it, or sift it, with her. But when she the wife of an ordinary man pours in the water, she a woman of a special religious society must not touch the flour to knead it with her, lest she strengthen the hands of a transgressor. And all these things were not said save for the sake of peace. And we may strengthen the hands of idolaters in the sabbatical year, but not the hands of Israel. And in salutation we may ask after their peace, for the sake of peace. Footnotes. 70 to 3 leaders daughters of the pit. Adam's apples, Jeer. Tall. Supposed to be the fruit which tempted Eve. The decision in the text assumes that the trees began to bud in the sabbatical year, and that the fruit would not be ripe for 3 years. 71 to 112 calves. 71, 2 to prevent their growth. 71 to 3 pois, for dyeing red. 72 to 1 this permission has reference to certain laws with regard to legal cleanness. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 6. 1. 3 countries are included in the laws of the sabbatical year. In all the possessions of those who returned from Babylon, from the border of the land of Israel and to Sezek. 2. We may not eat cultivated fruit, and we may not cultivate the ground. And in all the possessions of those who came up from Egypt from Sezek. 2. And to the P. 73. River of Egypt, and to the Amana. 1. We may eat cultivated fruits, but we may not cultivate the ground. From the river of Egypt, and from the Amana to the interior, we may eat the fruit and cultivate the ground. 2. Men may labor in that which is separated from the ground in Syria, but not in that which is attached to the ground. They may thresh, and shovel, and tread out, and make sheaves, but they must not reap the grain nor glean the grapes, nor beat the olives. This is the rule. Said Rabbi Akiba, all things similar to that which is allowed in the land of Israel, men may do in Syria. 3. Onions upon which fell rain and they sprouted? If the leaves on them be dark, they are forbidden. If green, they are allowed. Rabbi Hanina, the son of Antigonus, said, if they can be pulled up by their leaves they are forbidden. And contrariwise if it happens so in the close of the sabbatical year, they are allowed. 4. From what time may men buy greens at the close of the sabbatical year? From the time that similar young ones are produced. If the earlier ones are prematurely ripened, then the later ones are allowed. Rabbi 2, allowed greens to be bought offhand at the close of the sabbatical year. 5. Men must not export oil 3, which is only to be burned, nor fruits of the sabbatical year, from the land to lands abroad. Said Rabbi Simon, I expressly heard that they may be exported to Syria, but that they must not be exported to lands abroad. 6. Men must not import a heave offering from abroad into the land. Said Rabbi Simon, I expressly heard that they may import it from Syria, but that they must not import it from lands abroad. Footnotes. 72 to 2 Agzib. Iktiba, near Akka. 73 to 1 Some consider this to be the Abana, others read Ammon, and try to identify it with Mount Hor. 73 to 2 Rabbi Judah the Holy, called only Rabbi by way of eminence. 73 to 3 That is distilled oil of the heave offering, etc. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 74. Chapter 7. 1. The sages stated an important rule. In the sabbatical year, everything eaten by man and eaten by beast, and a kind of dye stuff, and whatever cannot remain in the ground, to them the laws of the sabbatical year apply, and to their value the laws of the sabbatical year apply. They are to be cleared off from being private property, and their price is to be cleared off from being private property. 1. And which are these? The leaves of the deceitful scallion, and the leaves of mint, succory, and cresses, and the leek, and the milk flower. 2. And what is eaten by beasts? Thorns and thistles and a kind of dye stuff, sprouts of indigo and madder. To them the laws of the sabbatical year apply, and to their price the laws of the sabbatical year apply. They are to be cleared off from being private property, and their price is to be cleared off from being private property. 2. And again, the sages stated another rule, all which is not eaten by man nor eaten by beasts, and a kind of dye stuff, and whatever remains in the ground, to them the laws of the sabbatical year apply, and to their price the laws of the sabbatical year apply, but they are not to be cleared off from being private property, nor is their price to be cleared off from being private property. And which are these? the root of the deceitful scallion, and the root of the mint, and scorpion grass. 3. And the bulbs of the milk flower, and the spikenard, and a kind of dye stuff, the dye plant, and the wormwood. To them the laws of the sabbatical year apply, and to their price the laws of the sabbatical year apply. They are not to be cleared off from being private property, nor is their price to be cleared off from being private property. Rabbi Meir said, their prices are to be cleared off from being private property till New Year's Day. The sages said to him, if they are not. P. 75. To be cleared off from being private property, it is immaterial about their prices. 3. The peelings and flower of the pomegranate, the shells and kernels of nuts. To them the laws of the sabbatical year apply, and to their prices the laws of the sabbatical year apply. The dyer may die for himself, but he must not die for pay, because men must not trade in fruits of the sabbatical year, nor in the firstborn, nor in heave offerings, nor in carcasses, nor in that which is torn, nor in abominations, nor in creeping things. And one must not buy grains of the field and sell them in the market. But one may gather them, and his son may sell them on his account. He may, however, buy for himself, and he is allowed to sell what is superfluous. He bought a firstborn animal for a feast for his son, or for a holiday, and has no need of it. He is allowed to sell it. 4. Hunters of wild animals, birds and fishes, who chance to find sorts that are unclean. It is allowed to sell them. Arjuda said, if a man become possessed of them in his ordinary way, he may buy and sell them, excepting that such shall not be his practice. But the sages disallow them. 5. The shoots of vines and of the locust trees? To them the laws of the sabbatical year apply, and to their prices the laws of the sabbatical year apply. They are to be cleared off from being private property, and their prices are to be cleared off from being private property. The shoots of the oak and the nuts, 1, and the blackberries? To them the laws of the sabbatical year apply, and to their prices the laws of the sabbatical year apply. They are not to be cleared off from being private property, and their prices are not to be cleared off from being private property. But their leaves must be cleared away to become public property, as they fall down from their stems. 2. 6. The rose and the carnation and the balsam and the chestnut? To them the laws of the sabbatical year apply. P. 76. And to their prices the laws of the sabbatical year apply. Our Simon said, there is no sabbatical year for the balsam, because it has no fruit. 7. A new sabbatical rose which when steeped in old oil? One may pick out the rose. But an old rose in new oil? One is bound to clear it off from being private property. New locust fruit which when steeped in old wine, and old fruit in new wine? Men are bound to clear them off from being private property. This is the rule. Everything which produces taste one is bound to clear off from being private property. Sorts that are different and sorts that are the same, however little they be. The laws of the sabbatical year disallow however little of its own sort, and in different sorts that which produces taste. 1. Footnotes. 74 to 1 that is. They become common property, and are to be deposited by Cadillac XXV. 7. 74 to 2 perhaps the star of Bethlehem. 74 to 3 a spiral grass growing on the palm tree. 75 to 1 Arabic, fustruk. Pistachio nuts. 75 to 2 sea chappics. 6. 76 to 1 this refers to the examples already given of rose and oil, or locust fruit and wine. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 8. 1. The sages stated an important rule for the sabbatical year: of all that is only fit for man's food a plaster may not be made for man, and it is needless to say for beast. And of all that is not fit for man's food a plaster may be made for man, but not for beast. And all that is not fit either for man's food or beast's food, if one consider it as food for man or food for beast, the sages impose on it the inconveniences of the laws relating to man and the inconveniences of the laws relating to beast. If one, however, consider it as wood, it is reckoned as wood. For example, the savory and the hyssop and the laurel. 2. Produce of the sabbatical year is given for food, for drink, and for anointing, to eat the thing which it is usual to eat, and to anoint with what it is usual to anoint with. One may not anoint with wine or vinegar, but one may anoint with oil. And so is it likewise with the heave offering and second tithe. The laws of the sabbatical year are more convenient for them, because it is permitted to light a candle made from them. P. 77. 3. Men must not sell the fruits of the sabbatical year, neither by measure, nor by weight, nor by count. Neither may they sell figs by counting, nor greens by weight. The school of Shammai say, nor in bunches. But the school of Hillel say, that which it is usual to make in bunches in the house man may make in bunches in the market. For example, cresses and the milk flour. 4. If one said to a laborer, here, take the sizer 1, and gather greens for me today, his hire is allowed. Gather me for it greens today, his hire is forbidden. If one take from the baker a cake for a pundian too, saying, When I will gather grains of the field and will bring them to you, it is allowed. If one take bread from the baker in silence, he must not pay him from money of the sabbatical year, because men must not pay a debt with money of the sabbatical year. 5. Men must not give money of the sabbatical year to a well digger, nor to a bath keeper, nor to a barber, nor to a skipper, but one may give it to a well digger for drink, and to all persons one may give a gratuitous present. 6. Men may not dry figs of the sabbatical year in the usual place, but one may dry them in a waste place. They must not tread grapes in a wine press, but they may tread them in the kneading trough. And they must not put olives into the oil press with a stone over them, but they may pound them and put them into a small press. Rabbi Simon said, One may also grind them in the house of the oil press and put them into the small press. 7. Men must not boil greens of the sabbatical year in oil of the heave offering, lest they take it for uses that are forbidden. Our Simon allowed it. And the very last thing in the series of exchanges partakes of the laws of the sabbatical year. But the fruit itself first exchanged is forbidden. 8. Men must not buy servants, ground, or an unclean beast, with money of the sabbatical year. But if they buy them, they must eat 3, as much as their value. They must. P. 78. Not bring for an offering the 2 pigeons of one with an issue, or the 2 pigeons after childbirth bought with money of the sabbatical year. And if they bring them, they must eat as much as their value. They must not anoint vessels with oil of the sabbatical year. But if they anoint them, they must eat as much as their value. 9. A skin which one anointed with oil of the sabbatical year? Rabbi Eliezer said, It must be burned. But the sages say, one must eat one, as much as its value. The sages said before Rabbi Akiva it was a saying of Rabbi Eliezer, a skin smeared with oil of the sabbatical year must be burned. He said to them, Hush. I cannot tell you what Rabbi Eliezer said about it. 10. And again, the sages said in his presence, it was a saying of Rabbi Eliezer, too, he who eats the bread of Samaritans is as one who eats swine flesh. He said to them, Hush. I cannot tell you what Rabbi Eliezer said about it. 11. A bath which was heated with stubble or straw of the sabbatical year? It is allowed to wash in it. But if one confer honor on the bath, he should not wash in it. Footnotes. 77 to 1 Iser, a coin worth 3 1/10 farthings. 77 to 2 pundian, a coin worth 1 1/2 d. 77 to 3 of the fruits of the sabbatical year. 78 to 1 of the fruits of the sabbatical year. 78 to 2 There are various rabbis of this name, spelt in different ways, mentioned in the Talmud. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 9. 1. The rue, and the sorrel with spreading leaves, and the wild savory, the coriander of the mountains, and the parsley of the marshes, and the rocket of the desert, are free from tithes. And they may be bought from all men in the sabbatical year, because nothing like them is legally guarded. Rabbi Judah said, the sprouts of the mustard are allowed, because transgressors are not suspected for taking them from a guarded place. Rabbi Simon said, all vegetables that sprout again are allowed, excepting the sprouts of cabbage, because there is not their like amongst the greens of the field. But the sages say, whatever sprouts again is forbidden. P. 79. 2. There are 3 countries to be public property in the sabbatical year, Judah and beyond Jordan and Galilee. And each is divided into 3 parts, Upper Galilee, Lower Galilee, and the Vale. From the village of Hananiah and upwards, every part in which the sycamore tree does not grow is Upper Galilee. And from the village of Hananiah and lower down, where any sycamore tree grows, is Lower Galilee. And the neighborhood of Tiberias is the Vale. And in Judah, the mountains, the plain, and the Vale, and the plain of Lida is as the plain of the south. And its mountains are as the king's mountains. 1. From Beth-horon and to the sea is 1 province. 3. And wherefore did the sages say 3 countries? That men might eat during the sabbatical year in every one of them, till the last fruits be finished in it. For Simon said, they did not say 3 countries, they said only in Judah. And all the other countries are reckoned as the king's mountain. And all countries are reckoned the same for olives and dates. 4. Men may eat so long as there is any fruit legally free, but they must not eat of that which is legally guarded. Rabbi Hosea allowed it, even when guarded. They may eat fruit so long as it is found in birds' nests, and such fruit as is twice produced in each year, but they must not eat of winter fruit. Our Judah allowed it at all times, if it ripened before the summer ended. 5. If men pressed 3 sorts of fruit in 1 barrel? Our Eliezer said, they may eat of the first. Our Joshua said, even of the last. Rabbi Gamaliel said, everything, the species of which is finished growing in the field, its species is to be removed from the barrel. 2. Rabbi Simon said, all greens are reckoned as one. They are to be cleared away from the house. They may eat of the leeks till the teasels have ceased growing in the valley of Beth Netapha. P. 86. He who gathers fresh herbs, he may use them till their sap dry out. And he who binds the dry in bundles, he may use them till the second rain descends. 1. The leaves of reeds and the leaves of vines, they may be used till they fall from their stems. And he who binds the dry in bundles, he may use them till the second rain descends. Rabbi Akiva said, they may be used by all persons till the second rain descends. 7. Like to this rule is his case who rented a house to his neighbor till the rains. This means till the second rain descends. He who by his vow cannot get assistance from his neighbor till the rains. This means till the second rain descends. When may the poor enter into the gardens? 2. When the second rain descends. When may they use and burn the stubble and straw of the sabbatical year? When the second rain descends. 8. A man had fruit of the sabbatical year, and the time came for clearing it out from his house. He may divide to everyone victuals for 3 meals. And the poor may eat the fruit after the clearing of it out, but not the rich. The words of Rabbi Judah. Rabbi Hosea said, the poor and the rich are alike, they may eat it after it is cleared out. 9. A man had fruits of the sabbatical year, whether they fell to him by inheritance, or were given to him by gift. R. Eliezer said, let them be given to those who may eat them. But the sages say, the transgressor must not profit, but let them be sold to those who may eat them, and let their price be divided to every man. He who eats dough of the sabbatical year before the heave offering be separated from it, he is guilty of death. Footnotes. 79-1 The King's Mountain is perhaps Mount Ephraim, or the mountain range over the plain of Sharon. It is also suggested that it might have been the mountains round Kirjath Jearim Abagush. It contains Sefer Bish, Sefer Shechlaim, Sefer Dekraya, etc. 79-2 Others read and the decision is as his word. 80-1 The second or the latter rain Joel E. 23, called Malkosh, falls in spring chiefly during the months of March and April. 80-2 Lev. XXII. 22. Joint. XXIV. 19. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 10. 1. The sabbatical year releases 3, alone, whether it be with or without a bill. The credit of a shop is not released. Key. 81. Paragraph continues but if one made it as a loan, it is released. Rabbi Judah said, all the first credit is released, the wages of an hireling is not released. But if one made it as a loan, it is released. Rabbi Hosea said, every work which ceases on the sabbatical year is released. But that which does not cease on the sabbatical year is not released from payment. 2. The butcher who slaughtered a heifer at the end of the sabbatical year, and divided her head for sale on the first of the 2 feast days of the new year, remains a debtor. But if he did so in an intercalary month, 1, he is released or XV. 1. But if it be not an intercalary month, he is not released. He who forced, or enticed, or uttered a slander, and every act of the tribunal, have no release. He who lent on security, or delivered his bills to the tribunal, there is no release for him. 3. The defense too, for the poor has no release. This is one of the things which the old Hillel ruled. When he saw that the people refrained from mutual loans, and transgressed what is written in the law, beware that there be not a thought in thy wicked heart. 3, etc. Hillel ruled the defense. 4. This is the substance of the defense, I hand over to you judges such and such men in such a place, that every debt which belongs to me I may collect, whenever I please. And the judges or witnesses sealed it below. 5. The defense written before the sabbatical year is valid, but afterwards it is disallowed. Bills written before the sabbatical year are disallowed, but afterwards they are valid. He who borrows from 5 persons must write a defense for each of them. If 5 persons borrow from 1, he writes but 1 defense for all of them. 6. Men must not write a defense save only on ground. If he have none, the lender may present him with however little from his own field. If he had a field in pledge in p. 82. A city, he may write on it the defense. Rabbi Husbeth said, a man may write it on the property of his wife, and for orphans on the property of their guardians. 7. Beehives. R. Eliezer said, they are as ground, and men may write on them a defense, and they contract no legal uncleanness in their proper place, but he who takes honey out of them on the Sabbath is liable for a sin offering. The sages, however, say they are not as ground, and men must not write on them a defense, and they do contract legal defilement in their place, and he who takes honey out of them on the Sabbath is free. 8. He who paid his debt on the sabbatical year? The lender must say to him, I release thee. When he said it to him, even so, he may receive it from him, as is said, and this is the manner of the release. 1. It is like the slayer who was banished to the city of refuge, and the men of the city wished to honor him. He must say to them, I am a murderer. They say to him, even so. He may receive the honor from them, as is said, and this is the case of the slayer. 2. 9. He who pays a debt in the sabbatical year? The spirit of the sages reposes on him. 3. He who borrowed from a proselyte, when his children 4, became proselytes with him. He need not repay his children. But if he repay them, the spirit of the sages reposes on him. All movables become property by acquisition. But everyone who keeps his word, the spirit of the sages reposes on him. Footnotes. 80-3 Deutsch XV. 1. 81-1 This decision supposes the case of the month Elul having 30 days, and the last day to be in the sabbatical year. Consequently it would not be one of the 2 feast days of the new year, which it should have been if the month had been the usual lunar month. 81-2 The defense, called Prospal, was a legal document constituted to encourage loans to the poor, and to protect the interests of the lender. 81-3 Deutsch XV. 9. 82-1 Deutsch XV. 2. 82-2 Deutsch. 6. 4. 82-3 That is, they are well pleased with him. 82-4 Money owing to Jewish proselytes was generally repaid, but it was not obligatory to pay it to their heirs, as the persons from whom the proselytes came were no longer in a religious sense their next of kin. Note. At the Feast of Tabernacles in the sabbatical year, the following portions of scripture were appointed to be read: Deutsch. I. 1-6. Vi. 4-8. Zi. 13:22. Zu. 22. XV. 23. XVII. 14. XXVI. 12-19. XXVII. XXVII. These portions were read by the king or high priest from a wooden platform erected in the temple. The king or the high priest usually read them sitting. King Agrippa, however, read them standing, and when he came to the words "Thou mayst not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother Deutsch." XVII. 15. Tears dropped from his eyes. The people then cried out to encourage him, "Thou art our brother, thou art our brother Soda." By 8. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 83. Treatise 3. Removals, work to be avoided, discussion between the schools of Shammai and Hillel as to what constitutes work allowed, lighting, eve of the Sabbath, cooking and hot water, retention of heat, burdens, ornaments, principal and secondary work. Chapter I. 1. Removals 1, on the Sabbath are 2. Of these removals 4 are inside a place. And there are 2 other removals, of which 4 are outside a place. How? A beggar stands without, and the master of the house within. The beggar reached his hand within, and gave something into the hand of the master of the house, or took something from it and brought it out. The beggar is guilty, 2, and the master of the house is free. The master of the house reached his hand outside and gave something into the hand of the beggar, or took something from it and brought it in. The master of the house is guilty, but the beggar is free. The beggar reached his hand within, and the master of the house took something from it, or gave something into it, and the beggar brought it out. Both are free. The master of the house reached his hand without, and the beggar took something from it, or gave something into it, and the master brought it in. Both are free. 2. A man must not sit before the barber near to evening prayer. 3. Until he has prayed. He must not enter a bath, nor a tannery, nor eat, nor judge. But if they began, they need not cease. They may cease to read the here, for, etc., but they must not cease to pray. 3. A tailor must not go out with his needle near dust. 3. P. 84. Lest he forget and go afterwards. Nor a scribe go out with his pen. Nor may one search his garments. Nor shall one read at the light of the lamp. In truth they said, the teacher may overlook when children are reading, but he himself shall not read. Similar to him, one with an issue shall not eat with her who has an issue, because of the custom of transgression. 4. And these following are from the decisions which they mentioned of the upper chamber of Hananiah, the son of Hezekiah, the son of Gorion, when the sages went up to visit him. The school of Shammai was counted, and was more numerous than the school of Hillel. And 18 matters were determined on that day. 5. The school of Shammai said, they must not soak ink, nor paints, nor vetches, unless they be sufficiently soaked while it is yet day. But the school of Hillel allow it. 6. The school of Shammai said, they must not put bundles of flax inside the oven, except it be sufficiently steamed while it is yet day, nor wool into the boiler except it imbibe sufficient dye in the eye of day. But the school of Hillel allow it. The school of Shammai said, they must not spread nets for beasts, nor birds, nor fishes, except they be netted while it is yet day. but the school of Hillel allow it. 7. The school of Shammai said, they must not sell to a stranger, and they must not lade his ass with him, and they must not load on him, except they have sufficient time to reach a near place before the Sabbath. But the school of Hillel allow it. 8. The school of Shammai said, they must not give skins to a tanner, nor articles to a strange laundress, except they can be sufficiently done while it is yet day. But all of them the school of Hillel allow with the sun. 9. Said Rabbi Simon, the son of Gamaliel, the house of my father used to give white articles to a strange laundress 3 days before the Sabbath. But both schools agree that they may carry 1, beams to the oil press and logs to the wine press. P. 85. 10. They must not fry flesh, onions, and eggs, except they be sufficiently fried while it is yet day. They must not put bread in the oven at dusk, nor a cake on coals, except its face be sufficiently crusted while it is yet day. Rabbi Eliezer said, that its underside be sufficiently crusted. 11. They may hang up the Passover offering in an oven at dusk, and they may take a light from the wood pile in their house of burning, and in suburbs, when the fire has sufficiently lighted the greater part. Rabbi Judah says, from the coals however little kindled before the Sabbath. Footnotes. 83-1 from private to public property. 83-2 of death. 83-3 on Friday evening. 83-4 Doid by 4. 84-1 though by their weight they continue to press out oil or wine on the Sabbath. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 2. 1. With what may they light lamps on the Sabbath? And with what may they not light? They may not light with cedar moss, nor with unhackled flax, nor with floss silk, nor with a wick of willow, nor with a wick of nettles, nor with weeds from the surface of water, nor with pitch, nor with wax, nor with castor oil, nor with the defiled oil of heave offering, nor with the tail, nor with the fat. Nahum the Median said, they may light with cooked fat. But the sages say, whether cooked or uncooked, they must not light with it. 2. They must not light with the defiled oil of the heave offering on the holiday. Rabbi Ishmael said, they must not light with pitch dregs for the honor of the Sabbath. But the sages allow all oils, with sesame oil, with nut oil, with radish oil, with fish oil, with colocynth oil, with pitch dregs and naphtha. Rabbi Tarfon said, they must only light with olive oil. 3. They must not light with anything that grows from wood, except flax. And all that grows from wood does not contract the uncleanness of tents. 3. Except flax. A wick of cloth folded but not singed. Rabbi Eliezer says, it. P. 86. Contracts uncleanness, and they must not light it. Rabbi Akiva says, it is clean, and they may light it. 4. A man must not perforate an eggshell, and fill it with oil, and put it on the mouth of the lamp, because it drops, even though it be of pottery. But Rabbi Judah allows it. But if the potter joined it at first, it is allowed, since it is one vessel. A man must not fill a bowl of oil, and put it by the side of the lamp, and put the end of the wick into it because it imbibes. But Rabbi Judah allows it. 5. Whoever extinguishes the lamp because he fears the Gentiles, or robbers, or a bad spirit, or that the sick may sleep, he is free. He spares the lamp. He spares the oil. He spares the wick. He is guilty. But Rabbi Jose frees in all cases except the wick, because it makes whole. 6. For 3 transgressions women die in the hour of childbirth, when they neglect times, and the dough offering, 1, and lighting the Sabbath lamp. 7. 3 things are necessary for a man to say in his house on the eve of the Sabbath at dusk. Have you taken tithes? Have you prepared Arab? 2. Light the lamp. It is doubtful if it be dark or not. 3. They must not tithe that which is certainly untouched, and they must not baptize vessels, and they must not light the lamps. But they may take tithes of the doubtful heave offering, and prepare Arab, and cover up hot water. Footnotes. 85-1 when the eve of the Passover and the eve of the Sabbath coincided. 85-2 in the temple. See tract measurements, C. 1. 85-3 num. 6. 18. 86-1 num XP. 20. 86-2 that is have you so joined houses that are apart that they may be counted as one on the Sabbath for carrying articles etc. It is done by persons blessing a piece of dough which is common property. 86-3 when 3 stars are seen, it is dark. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 3. 1. A cooking oven which was heated with stubble or brushwood. They may place on it cookery, with oil dregs and with wood. They must not place it, till the coals are raked out, or ashes put in. The school of Shammai say, hot water, but not cookery. But the school, P. 87. Of Hillel say, hot water and cookery. The school of Shammai say, they may take it off, but not place it back. But the school of Hillel say, they may place it back. 2. A cooking stove, which was heated with stubble or brushwood. They must not place anything either inside or upon it. A bake oven, which was heated with stubble or brushwood. It is as a cooking oven. With oil dregs or with wood. It is as a cooking stove. 3. They must not put an egg beside a boiler, lest it be boiled. And they must not wrap it in towels. But Rabbi Jose allows it. And they must not hide it in sand, or in the dust of the roads, lest it be roasted. 4. It happened that the men of Tiberias arranged, and introduced a pipe of cold water into a canal of the hot springs. The sages said to them, if it be Sabbath, it is as if hot waters were heated on Sabbath, they are forbidden for washing and drinking. But if on a holiday, as if hot waters were heated on a holiday, they are forbidden for washing but allowed for drinking. A skillet with attached brazier? If one rake out the coals on Friday evening, persons may drink its hot waters on Sabbath. A pan with double bottom? Even though the coals are raked out, they must not drink of it. 5. Boiler which is set aside from the fire? They must not put into it cold water to be warmed. But they may put into it, or into a cup, cold water to make it lukewarm. A saucepan or an earthen pot, which they took off boiling. They must not put into it spices, but they may put them into a bowl or into a plate. Rabbi Judah says, they may put them into all vessels, excepting a thing in which there is vinegar or fish brine. 6. They must not put vessels under a lamp to catch the oil. But if they place them, while it is still day, it is allowed. But they must not use it, because it is not purposely prepared for Sabbath use. They may remove a new lamp, but not an old one. Rabbi Simon says, all lamps may be removed, except the lamp lighted for the Sabbath. They may put a vessel under the lamp to catch sparks, but they must not put water into it, as it quenches. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 88. Chapter 4. 1. With what may they cover up pots to retain the heat? And with what may they not cover them up? They may not cover them up with oil dregs, or dung, or salt, or lime, or sand either fresh or dry, or straw, or grape skins, or woolen, or herbs when they are fresh, but they may cover up with them when they are dry. They may cover up with garments, and fruits, with dove's wings, with carpenter's sawdust, and with tow of fine flax. Rabbi Judah forbids fine, but allows coarse. 2. They may cover up with hides, and remove them, with woolen fleeces, but they must not remove them. How does one do? He takes off the cover, and they fall down. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Azariah, says the vessel is inclined on its side, and he takes them away. Perhaps he took them away and cannot return them? 1. But the sages say he may take them away, and return them. He does not cover it, while it is yet day. He must not cover it, when it begins to be dark. He covered it, and it opened. It is allowed to cover it again. A man may fill the goblet, and put it under the pillow or under the bolster to warm it. Footnotes. 88-1 as that would involve labor. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 5. 1. With what is a beast led forth, and with what is it not led forth? 2. One may lead forth the camel with the headstall, and the she-camel with the nose ring, and the lidah 3, asses with a bridle, and a horse with a halter, and all animals that wear a halter they may lead forth with a halter, and they are held with a halter, and, if unclean, they may sprinkle water upon them, and baptize them in their places. 2. The ass one may lead forth with a pass saddle when it is bound on it. Rams go forth tied up. Ewes go forth. p. 89. With tails bound back, doubled down, or put in a bag. The goats go forth bound tightly. Rabbi Jose forbids all, excepting ewes, to have their tails in a bag. Rabbi Judah says the goats go forth bound tightly to dry up their udders, but not to guard the milk. 3. And with what must they not go forth? A camel must not go forth with a rag bound as a mark to its tail, nor fettered, nor with forefoot tied doubled up, and so with the rest of all beasts. A man must not bind camels one to another, and lead them, but he may take their ropes into his hand, and hold them, guarding that they be not twisted. 1. 4. One must not bring forth an ass with a pack saddle, when it is not tied upon him before the Sabbath. Nor with a bell, even though it be muffled, nor with the ladder too, on its throat, nor with a strap on its leg. Nor may cocks and hens be led forth with twine or straps on their legs. Nor may rams be led forth with a go-cart under their tails, nor used with John wood. 3. And the calf must not be led forth with a muzzle, nor a cow with the skin of the hedgehog. 4. Nor with a strap between her horns. The cow 5, of Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Azariah, used to go out with a strap between her horns, but not with the rule of the sages. Footnotes. 88. To the point to be decided is the difference between what is necessary and what is a burden. 88 to 3 others think Libyan asses. 89 to 1 through fear of linen and woolen being mixed. Doit. XXII. 11. 89 to 2 ladder-shaped piece of wood to prevent it rubbing its throat if it have a sore. 89 to 3 wood discovered by 1 John, which when put into sheep's nostrils, caused them to sneeze and the maggots to fall off. 89. 4 to prevent her being sucked by reptiles. 89 to 5 the Gemara says, the cow was his neighbor's, but as he did not object, the blame was laid on him. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 6. 1. With what may a woman go out? And with what may she not go out? A woman may not go out with laces of wool, nor with laces of flax, nor with straps on her head, and she cannot baptize herself in them till she unloose them. Nor with frontlets, nor temple fillets, unless sewn to her cap, nor with a headband, into the public street, nor with a golden crown in the form of Jerusalem, nor with p. 90. A necklace, nor with nose rings, nor with a ring without a seal, nor with a needle without an eye. But, if she go out, she is not guilty of a sin offering. 2. A man must not go out with hobnailed sandals, 1, nor with one sandal when there is no sore on his other foot, nor with phylacteries, nor with an amulet unless it be of an expert, nor with a coat of mail, nor with a helmet, nor with greaves. But, if he go out, he is not guilty of a sin offering. 3. A woman must not go out with an eyed needle, nor with a signet ring, nor with a spiral headdress, nor with a scent box, nor with a bottle of musk. And if she go out she is guilty of a sin offering. The words of Rabbi Meir. But the sages absolve the scent box and the bottle of musk. 4. The man must not go out with sword, nor bow, nor shield, nor sling, nor lance. And if he go out he is guilty of a sin offering. Rabbi Eliezer said, they are his ornaments. But the sages say, they are only for shame, as is said, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. 2. Garters are clean, and they may go forth in them on Sabbath. Anklets 3, contract uncleanness, and they must not go out in them on Sabbath. 5. A woman may go out with plaits of hair whether they be her own, or her companions', or a beast's hair, with frontlets and temple fillets, when they are sewn to her cap, with a headband or a stranger's curl into the courtyard, with wool in her ear, and wool in her shoe, and wool prepared for her separation, with pepper, or with a grain of salt, 4, or with anything which she will put inside her mouth, except that she shall not put it in for the first time on the Sabbath, and if it fall out she must not put it back. A false tooth or a p. 91. Tooth of gold. Rabbi allows it, but the sages forbid it. 6. A woman may go out with a coin on the sore foot. Little girls may go out with plates and even splinters in their ears. Arab women go out veiled, and Median women with mantillas. And so may anyone, but, as the sages have said, according to their custom. 7. A mantilla may be folded over a stone, or a nut, or money, save only that it be not expressly folded for the Sabbath. 8. The cripple may go out on his wooden leg. The words of Rabbi Meir. But Rabbi Jose forbids it. But if it have a place for receiving rags, it is unclean. His crutches cause uncleanness by treading. But they may go out with them on the Sabbath, and they may enter with them into the temple court. The chair and crutches of a paralytic cause uncleanness by treading, and they must not go out with them on the Sabbath, and they must not enter with them into the temple court. Stilts 1 are clean, but they must not go out with them. 9. The sons may go out with their father's girdles, and sons of kings with little bells. And so may anyone, but, as the sages have said, according to their custom. 10. They may go out with an egg of a locust, 2, and a tooth of a fox, 3, and a nail of one crucified, as medicine. 4. The words of Rabbi Meir. But the sages say others read the words of Rabbi Jose and Rabbi Meir it is forbidden even on a weekday, because of the ways of the Amorites. 5. Footnotes. 90 to 1 Once a number of Jews took refuge in a cave, and hearing some persons pass, whom they supposed to be enemies, they fell on each other with their hobnailed sandals, and beat each other to death. 90 to 2 Isaiah Zai. 4. Micah If. 3. 90 to 3 These anklets were a kind of chain used to prevent members of certain families in Jerusalem taking too wide strides in walking. 90. 4 to cure toothache. 91 to 1 Others translate masks. 91. 2 to cure earache. 91. 3 to cure one who did not sleep enough they used a tooth of a dead fox. For one who slept too much, they used a tooth of a living fox. 91. 4 to cure aid. 91 to 5 Lev. XVII. 3. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 7. 1. The sages laid down a great rule for the Sabbath. Everyone who forgets the principle of Sabbath, and did many works on many Sabbaths, is only responsible for one. P. 92. Sin offering. Everyone who knows the principle of Sabbath, and did many works on many Sabbaths, is responsible for every Sabbath. Everyone who knows that there is Sabbath, and did many works on many Sabbaths, is responsible for every principal work. 1. Everyone who has done many works, springing from one principal work, is only responsible for one sin offering. 2. The principal works are 40, less 1, sowing, plowing, ripping, binding sheaves, threshing, winnowing, sifting, grinding, riddling, kneading, baking, shearing wool, whitening, carding, dyeing, spinning, warping, making 2 spools, weaving 2 threads, taking out 2 threads, twisting, loosing, sewing 2 stitches, tearing thread for 2 sewings, hunting the gazelle, slaughtering, skinning, salting, curing its skin, tanning, cutting up, writing 2 letters, erasing to write 2 letters, building, demolishing, quenching, kindling, hammering, carrying from private to public property. Lo, these are principal works, 40, less 1. 3. And another rule the sages laid down, all that is worthy of reservation, and they reserve its like, if they carry it out on the Sabbath, they are responsible for a sin offering. And everything which is not worthy of reservation, and they do not reserve its like, if they carry it out on the Sabbath, none is responsible but the reserver. 4. Whoever brings out straw, a heifer's mouthful, hay, a camel's mouthful, chaff, a lamb's mouthful, herbs, a kid's mouthful, garlic leaves and onion leaves, if fresh, the size of a dried fig if dry, a kid's mouthful. But they must not add one with the other, for they are not equal in their measures. Whoever carries out food the size of a dried fig, is guilty of death. And victuals, they may add one to another as they are equal in their measures, excepting their peels and their kernels, and their stalks and the fine and coarse bran. Rabbi Judah says, excepting the peels of lentils, as they may cook them with them. Footnotes. 92:1 works are divided into principal and secondary, or in rabbinic language fathers and children. And if a man does one principal work and 20 secondary works, they regarded them as one sin, and consequently deserving one punishment. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 93. Chapter 8. 1. One may bring out wine sufficient for the cup, 1. Milk sufficient for a gulp, honey sufficient for a bruise, oil sufficient to anoint a small member, water sufficient to moisten the eyes of, and the rest of all beverages a quarter of a log, and whatever can be poured out too, a quarter of a log. Rabbi Simeon says, all of them by the quarter log. And they did not mention these measures save for those who reserved them. 2. Whoever brings out cord sufficient to make an ear for a tub, bulrush sufficient to hang the sieve and the riddle. Rabbi Judah said, sufficient to take from it the measure of a child's shoe. Paper sufficient to write on it the signature of the tax gatherers. Erased paper sufficient to wrap round a small bottle of balm, is guilty of death. 3. Leather sufficient for an amulet. Parchment polished on both sides, sufficient to write a sign for a doorpost. Vellum sufficient to write on it a small portion, which is in phylacteries, that is, Hear, O Israel. Ink sufficient to write 2 letters. Pulp reed, sufficient to paint 1 eye. 4. Birdlime sufficient to put on the top of a perch. Pitch or sulfur to fill a hole. Wax sufficient to fill the mouth of a small hole. Brick clay sufficient to make the mouth of a crucible bellows for goldsmiths. Rabbi Judah says, sufficient to make a crucible stand. Bran sufficient to put on the mouth of a crucible blowpipe for goldsmiths. Ointment sufficient to anoint the little finger of girls. Rabbi Judah says, sufficient to make the hair grow. Rabbi Nehemiah says, to freshen the temple. 5. Red earth as the seal of merchants, the words of our Akiba. But the sages say, as the seal of letters. Dung and fine sand, sufficient to manure a cabbage stalk, the words of Rabbi Akiba. But the sages say, sufficient to manure a leek. Coarse sand sufficient to put on a full lime hod. A reed sufficient to make a pen. But if it be P. 94. Thick or split? Sufficient to boil with it a hen's egg easy to be cooked amongst eggs, mixed with oil and put in a pan. 6. A bone sufficient to make a spoon, Rabbi Judah said, sufficient to make the ward of a key. Glass sufficient to scrape the top of a shuttle. A lump of earth or a stone sufficient to fling at a bird. Rabbi Eliezer said, sufficient to fling at a beast. 7. A potsherd? Sufficient to put between 2 beams, the words of Rabbi Judah. Rabbi Meir says, sufficient to take away fire with it. Rabbi Jose says, sufficient to receive in it the fourth of a log. Said Rabbi Meir, although there is no visible proof of the matter, there is an indication of the matter, as is said, there shall not be found in the bursting of it assured to take fire from the hearth. 1. Rabbi Jose said to him, thence is the visible proof, or to take water out of the pit. 1. The remaining 2/3 of this treatise are not translated, as they are devoid of interest, and in parts unfit for publication. Footnotes. 93-1 that is 1 part wine and 3 parts water. 93-2 for example foul water. 93-3 henna dust for women's eyes. 94-1 Isaiah XXX. 14. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 95. Treatise 4. Searching for leaven, how leaven is to be put away, restrictions with regard to it, what things make leaven, leavening, work on the eve of the Passover, trades allowed, men of Jericho, Hezekiah, the daily offering, intention, slaughter of Passover offering, mode of proceeding, the Passover on the Sabbath, discussion between our Akiva and our Eliezer, roasting the Passover, various contingencies, hindrances, rules and directions, how the Passover is to be eaten, praise and thanksgiving. Chapter I. 1. On the eve of the 14th day of Nisan 1, men search for leaven by candlelight. Every place where men do not bring in leaven, there is no need of search. And wherefore do they say, 2 lines of barrels in the wine cellar? The place is meant into which persons bring leaven. The school of Shammai say, 2 rows in front of the whole cellar. But the school of Hillel say, the 2 outer lines on the top. 2. People need not suspect, lest perchance the weasel have slipped with leaven from house to house or from place to place. If so, from court to court, from city to city, there is no end to the matter. 3. Rabbi Judah said, men search on the eve of the 14th and on the morning of the 14th day, and at the time of burning it. But the sages say, if one did not search on the eve of the 14th, he must search on the 14th. If he did not search on the 14th, he must search during the feast. If he did not search during the feast, he must search after the feast. And whatever remains. p. 96. He shall leave well concealed, that there be no further need of search after it. 4. Rabbi Meir said, men may eat it till 5 o'clock, 1, and burn it at the beginning of 6. Rabbi Judah said, they may eat it till 4, and they are in suspense about 5, but they burn it at the beginning of 6. 5. And again said our Judah, 2 loaves of the disallowed praise offering were placed on the portico of the temple enclosure. Whilst they were placed there, all the people might eat leaven. If one were taken down they were in suspense. They neither ate nor burned it. When both were taken down they began to burn it. Rabbi Gamaliel said, men may eat ordinary food till 4 o'clock, and the heave offering till 5 o'clock, but they burned the leaven at 6 o'clock. 6. Rabbi Shemina, the deputy of the priesthood, said, from the first days of the priesthood the priests did not object to burn the flesh rendered legally unclean too, with the second degree of uncleanness, with the flesh rendered legally unclean with the first degree of uncleanness. Even though they should add legal uncleanness to legal uncleanness. Rabbi Akiva went further and said, from the first days of the priesthood the priests did not object to light the oil which was disallowed on the day of a man's baptism who had been legally unclean, with a candle which was unclean with the uncleanness of the dead, even though they should add legal uncleanness to legal uncleanness. 7. Said our Meir, from their words we learn that men may burn the clean heave offering of leaven, with that which is unclean, on account of the Passover. To him replied Rabbi Jose, this is not the conclusion. But Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Joshua confess that men should burn each by itself. And the contention is with regard to what is doubtful, and what is unclean. Because Rabbi Eliezer said, thou shalt burn each by itself. But our Joshua said, both at once. Footnotes. 95-1 Nisan nearly corresponds with the month of March. 96-1 that is 11 o'clock a.m. To obtain our computation of time, 6 must be added to the hours mentioned in the Mishnah. 96-2 when uncleanness is mentioned, it is to be understood of legal uncleanness. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. p. 97. Chapter 2. 1. The whole time that it is allowed to eat leaven, men may feed beasts with it, and wild animals and fowls, and they may sell it to a stranger. And they are allowed to enjoy it in every way. When that season has passed over its enjoyment is disallowed, and they must not heat with it an oven or a stove. Rabbi Judah said, there is no riddance of leaven but by burning. But the sages say, also by powdering and scattering it to the wind, or casting it into the sea. 2. The leaven of a stranger, over which the Passover has passed. Its enjoyment is allowed. But of an Israelite, its enjoyment is disallowed, as is said, 1, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee. 3. The stranger who has lent money to an Israelite on his leaven? After Passover its enjoyment is allowed. And an Israelite who lent money to the stranger on his leaven? Its enjoyment after Passover is disallowed. Leaven over which a building fell? It is as though it was cleared away. Rabbi Simon, son of Gamaliel, said, all after which the dog cannot snuff. 4. He who has eaten a leavened heave offering during the Passover in error? he must pay its value and a fifth more. In presumption, he is free from the payment, and from its value even for fuel. 2. 5. These are the things by which one can discharge his obligation to eat unleavened bread during the Passover, with cakes made of wheat, and barley, and rye, and oats, and spelt. And they discharged their obligation in that of which the tithing was doubtful, and in the first tithe after the heave offering was separated from it, and in second tithes and holy things after their redemption. And the priests discharged their obligation with cakes of dough offering and heave offering, but not with that which owes first tithes, or before the heave offering was separated from it, nor with P. 98. That which owes second tithes or holy things before their redemption. The loaves of the praise offering and the cakes of the Nazarite. If made for themselves, they do not discharge the obligation. If made for sale in the market, they discharge the obligation. 6. And these are the herbs with which one discharges his obligation to eat bitter herbs in the Passover: lettuce, endives, horseradish, licorice, and coriander. The obligation can be discharged whether they be moist or dry, but not if they be pickled, or much boiled, or even a little boiled. And they may be united to form the size of an olive. And the obligation may be discharged with their roots. And also if their tithes be in doubt. And with their first tithing, when the heave offering has been taken from them. And with their second tithe, and with holy things which are redeemed. 7. Persons must not moisten bran during the Passover for chickens, but they may scald it. A woman must not moisten bran in her hand when she goes to the bath, but she may rub it dry on her flesh. A man should not chew wheat and leave it on a wound during Passover, because it becomes leavened. 8. People must not put flour into the charosset one, or into the mustard. But if one puts it, he must eat it offhand. But Rabbi Meir forbids it. They must not boil the Passover offering in liquids nor in fruit juice. But one may smear it after it is roasted, or dip it into them. Water used by the baker must be poured away because it becomes leavened. Footnotes. 97 to 1 Exod. G. 7. 97 to 2 that is. He is to be put to death forthwith. 98 to 1 Fruit sauce. A mixture of dates, raisins, and other fruits, to recall the memory of the mortar from which the bricks in Egypt were made. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 3. 1. These caused transgression during Passover: the Babylonian kuthak, 2, and the Median beer, and the Edomite vinegar, and the Egyptian zithim, 3, and the purifying dough. P. 99. Of the dyer, 1, and the clarifying grain of the cooks, and the paste of the bookbinders. Rabbi Eliezer said, even the cosmetics of women. This is the rule. All kinds of grain whatever may cause transgression during the Passover. These are negative commands, and they are not visited by cutting off. 2. Dough in a split of a kneading trough. If there be the size of an olive in a single place, one is bound to clear it out. Less than this is worthless from its minuteness. And so is it with the question of uncleanness. Particularity causes division. But if one wish it to remain, it is reckoned as the trough. Dough dried up. 2. If it be like that which can become leavened, it is forbidden. 3. How do persons separate the dough offering when it becomes unclean on the holiday? Rabbi Eliezer said, you cannot call it a dough offering till it be baked. Rabbi Judah, the son of Gethera, said, you must put it in cold water. Said Ar Joshua, it is not leavened so as to transgress the negative command, it shall not be seen nor found. 3. But it must be separated and left till the evening. But if it become leavened, it is leavened. 4. Rabbi Gamaliel said, 3 women may knead at once, and bake in one oven, each after the other. But the sages say, 3 women may be busied with the dough, one kneads, and one prepares, and one bakes. Rabbi Akiva said, all women, and all wood, and all ovens, are not alike. This is the rule. If it fermented, must be smoothed down with cold water. 5. Dough which begins to leaven must be burned, but he who eats it is free. When it begins to crack, it must be burned, and he who eats it must be cut off. What is leavening? Like the horns of locusts. Cracking? When the cracks intermingle. The words of Ar Judah. But the sages say, if either of them be eaten, the eater must be cut off. And what is leavening? All which P. 100. Changed its appearance, as when a man's hairs stand on end through fright. 6. If the 14th day of Nisan happened on the Sabbath, they must clear off all the leaven before the Sabbath begins. The words of Armire. But the sages say, in the proper season. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Zadok, said, the heave offering before the Sabbath, and ordinary things in the proper season. 7. If one went to kill his Passover, or circumcise his son, or to eat the marriage feast in the house of his father-in-law, and he remembered that there was leaven in his house? If he can, he must return and clear it out, and return to his duties. he must return and clear it away. But if not, he can esteem it as nothing in his heart. If one went to save a person from the militia, or from a river, or from robbers, or from burning, or from the fall of buildings, he may esteem it as nothing in his heart. But if he is reposing at his ease, he must return offhand. 8. And so also when one went forth from Jerusalem and remembered that he had holy flesh in his hand, if he passed off in one, he must burn it on the spot. But if not, he must return and burn it in front of the temple with the wood of the altar. And for how much flesh or leaven must men return? Rabbi Meir said, both of them the size of an egg. Rabbi Judah said, both the size of an olive. But the sages say, holy flesh the size of an olive, and leaven the size of an egg. Footnotes. 98 to 2 fragments of chickens and dough left to ferment. 98 to 3 a compound of barley, wild saffron, and salt, 1/3 of each. 99 to 1 a dough or unripe grain lid put over the liquid to absorb the dregs from the foam of fermentation. 99 to 2 liters dev. That is, dough which does not rise, or that sounds still when it is struck. 99 to 3 exodzai. 19. 100 to 1 an eminence from which there was a clear view of the temple. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 4. 1. A place in which men are accustomed to do work on the eve of the Passover. For half a day they may work. A place in which they are not accustomed to work. They must not work. If one goes from a place where they work to a place where they do not work, or from a place where they do not work to a place where they p. 101. Do work? The sages put on him the burden 1, of the place from which he went, or the burden of the place to which he came. But a man should not change the customs of a place, as it causes quarrels. 2. Like to him is he who carried fruits of the sabbatical year from a place where they were finished growing to a place where they were not finished growing, or from a place where they were not finished to a place where they were finished. He is bound to remove them. Rabbi Judah said, they can say to him, go and bring them for yourself from the field. 2. 3. A place in which men are accustomed to sell small cattle to Gentiles. They may sell them. A place in which they are not accustomed to sell them. They may not sell them. But in no place may they sell working cattle, calves, ass foals, either unblemished or broken down. 3. Rabbi Judah allowed a broken down. The son of Gethera allowed a horse. 4. A place where men are accustomed to eat roast meat on the night of the Passover. They may eat it. A place in which they are not accustomed to eat it. They may not eat it. A place in which they are accustomed to light a candle on the night of the Day of Atonement. They may light it. A place in which they are not accustomed to light it. They may not light it. But men may light candles in the synagogues, and in the schools, and in the dark streets, and for the sick. 5. A place in which men are accustomed to do work on the 9th of Av. 4. They may work. A place in which they are not accustomed to work. They may not work. But everywhere the disciples of the sages are idle. Rabbi Simon, the son of Gamaliel, said, a man may always make himself a disciple of the sages. But the sages say, in Judah they did work on the eves of the Passovers for half a day, and in Galilee they did nothing. And work in p. 102. The night before the Passover the school of Shammai disallowed. But the school of Hillel allowed it till sunrise. 6. Rabbi Meir said, every work which was begun before the 14th day of Nisan may be finished on the 14th. But it must not be commenced on the 14th, even though it can be finished. And the sages say, 3 trades can carry on business on the eves of the Passovers for half a day. And these are they, the tailors, and the barbers, and the washers. Rabbi Jose, the son of Judah, said, also shoemakers. 7. Persons may set hens on their nests on the 14th. But if the hen ran off, they may return her to her place. And if she died, they may set another instead of her. They may clear away from beneath the feet of beasts on the 14th. But on the holiday or middle days they put it aside. They may carry to, and bring vessels from, the house of the trader, even though they be not necessary for the holiday. 8. The men of Jericho did 6 things, in 3 they were prohibited, and in 3 they were allowed. And these are they in which they were allowed. They encrypted dates the whole 14th day of Nisan, and they shortened the year. 1. And they reaped and stacked new corn before the sheaf 2 was offered. And they were allowed. And in these they were prohibited. They used the produce of what was consecrated, and they ate on the Sabbath the fruit that had fallen down from the trees, and they gave 3 to the poor the corners of the fields of vegetables. And the sages prohibited them from these things. 4. 9. Beeritha, external tradition. Hezekiah the king did 6 things. To 3 the sages consented, and to 3 they did not consent. He carried the bones of his father Isaiah on a rope. 5. And they consented. P. 103. paragraph continues. He powdered the brazen serpent. 1. And they consented. He concealed the book of medicines. 2. And they consented. And to 3 they did not consent. He cut off the gold from the doors of the temple. 3. And sent it to the Assyrian king, and they did not consent. He stopped the waters of the upper Gihon. 4. And they did not consent. He introduced an intercalary Nithan, and they did not consent. Footnotes. 101-1 The burden means that the man is forbidden to work. 101-2 See treatise on the sabbatical year, Ix. 5, etc. 101-3 Lest the Gentiles should set them to work on the Sabbath. 101-4 Part of July and August. The 9th of Ab is the anniversary of the threefold destruction of the temple. 102-1 Doid Vi. 4. 102-2 Lev. XXII. 15. 102-3 Lev Zix. 9, 10. 102-4 Because the poor might eat them untapped, thinking they were P. 102, 5 To show his abhorrence of his father's idolatry. 103-1 2 Kings XVII. 4. 103-2 Lest the people should substitute medicine for God. 103-3 2 Kings XVII. 16. 103-4 2 Crown. XXXII. 4. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 5. 1. The daily offering was slaughtered at 8:30. 5. And offered at 9:30. On the eve of the Passover it was slaughtered at 7:30 and offered at 8:30, whether the Passover fell on a weekday or on the Sabbath. When the eve of the Passover began on the eve of the Sabbath Friday, it was slaughtered at 6:30, and offered at 7:30, and the Passover followed after it. 2. The Passover offering, which was slaughtered without intention, and the priest took its blood, and he went and sprinkled it without intention. Or with intention, and without intention? Or without intention and with intention? It is disallowed. How can it be with intention and without intention? With intention partly for the Passover, and with intention partly for peace offerings. Without intention and with intention? With intention partly for peace offerings, and with intention partly for the Passover offering. 3. If he slaughtered the Passover for those who may not legally eat it, for those who are not reckoned in one company, for the uncircumcised, and for the unclean, it is disallowed. For those who may eat, and for those who may not eat it, for those who are reckoned in one company, and for those who are not so reckoned, for circumcised, and for uncircumcised, for unclean, and for p. 104. Clean? It is allowed. If he slaughtered it before noon, it is disallowed. Because it is said between the evenings. 1. If he slaughtered it before the daily offering, it is allowed. Except that one must keep stirring to its blood, till the blood of the daily offering be sprinkled. But if it be even sprinkled before, it is lawful. 4. He who slaughtered the Passover offering possessing leaven, he transgressed a negative command. 3. Rabbi Judah said, this applies even to the daily offering of that evening. Rabbi Simon said, the slaughter of the Passover on the 14th with intention for the Passover makes a man possessing leaven guilty. But if it be slaughtered without intention for the Passover he is free. And in all other sacrifices during the feast, whether one sacrifice with or without the proper intention, he is free. When one thus offers in the feast itself with proper intention, he is free. Without proper intention, he is guilty. And in all the other sacrifices, when one possessing leaven offers either with or without intention, he is guilty, only excepting the sin offering, which was slaughtered without intention. 5. The Passover was slaughtered for 3 bands in succession, as is said, the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel. 5. Assembly, congregation, Israel. The first band entered, the court was filled, the doors of the court were locked. The trumpeters blew with the trumpets, blew an alarm, and blew. The priests stood in rows, and in their hands were bowls of silver and bowls of gold. All the silver row was entirely silver, and all the golden row was entirely gold. They were not mingled. And the bowls were not flat-bottomed, lest they should lay them down, and the blood be coagulated. 6. When an Israelite slaughtered, and a priest caught. P. 105. The blood, he gave it to his companion, and his companion to his companion, and he took the full, and returned the empty bowl. The priest nearest the altar poured it out at once in front of the foundation of the altar. 7. The first band went out, the second band entered. The second went out, the third entered. As was the proceeding of the first, so was the proceeding of the second and the third. They read the praise. 1. When they finished they repeated it, and after repeating it they read it a third time, even though they did not complete it thrice in their time. Our Judah said, during the time of the third band they did not reach to I love the Lord, for he hath heard, because the people were few. 8. As was the proceeding in ordinary days, so was the proceeding on the Sabbath, save that the priests washed out the court, too, though not with the will of the sages. Our Judah said, a cup was filled with mixed up blood, 3, and poured out at once upon the altar. But the sages did not admit it. 9. How did they hang up and skin the Passover sacrifices? Iron hooks were fixed in the walls and pillars, and on them they hung them, and skinned them. And everyone who had not a place to hang them up and skin them? Thin smooth rods were there, and he rested one on the shoulder and on the shoulder of his companion, and hung it up and skinned it. Rabbi Eliezer said, when the 14th began on the Sabbath, he rested his hand on the shoulder of his companion, and the hand of his companion on his shoulder, and he hung it up and skinned it. 10. He cut it open, and took out its entrails. He put them on a dish and incensed them on the altar. The first party went out, and sat down on the mountain of the house. The second party were in the shul, 4, and the third party remained in their place. When it grew dark they went out and roasted their Passovers. Footnotes. 103 to 5, that is 2.30 p.m. 104 to 1 exod. Z. 6. 104, 2 to prevent its coagulating. 104 to 3 exod. XXII. 18. 104 to 4, Josephus mentions the number of lambs slain at a particular Passover to have been numbered by the high priest, and they were found to have been 256,500. Allowing not less than 10 persons to the eating of each lamb, he computes those present at the feast to have been 2,700,200 persons. Josephus Wars, 5. 9. 3. 104 to 5 exod. Z. 6. 105 to 1 Psalm CXII. CXBII. 105 to 2 They washed the court indirectly by stopping a canal of water which overflowed the court. They afterwards opened it, when all flowed off again. 105 to 3 Taken from the intermingled blood of the many offerings. 105 to 4 See measurements, E. 3. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. P. 106. Chapter 6. 1. These things in the Passover abrogate the command against work on the Sabbath, its slaughtering, and the sprinkling of its blood, and purging its inwards, and incensing its fat. But its roasting and the rinsing of its inwards do not abrogate the Sabbath. But to carry it, and to bring it beyond a Sabbath day's journey, and to cut off its wind, do not abrogate the Sabbath. Rabbi Eliezer said, they abrogate it. 2. Said Rabbi Eliezer, and is not this the teaching? When slaughtering is work it abrogates the Sabbath. Things which are for resting do not abrogate the Sabbath. 1. To him said Rabbi Joshua, a holiday will give the proof. The sages permitted that which is work, and they forbade that which is resting. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, what do you mean, Joshua? What comparison is there between a command and that which is voluntary? Rabbi Akiva answered and said, sprinkling too will give the proof, because it is a positive command, and it is for resting, and does not abrogate the Sabbath. But you should not wonder at this, even though it be a command, as it is for resting, and does not abrogate the Sabbath. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, and on that I form my judgment, when slaughtering is work it abrogates the Sabbath. Sprinkling, which is for resting, does it not teach that it abrogates the Sabbath? Rabbi Akiva said to him, on the contrary, if sprinkling, which is for resting, does not abrogate the Sabbath, slaughtering, which is for work, is it not the teaching? Should not abrogate the Sabbath. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, Akiva, thou hast annulled what is written in the law, between the evenings, in its appointed time, whether it be a weekday or a Sabbath. He said to him, my teacher, give me proof of an appointed time for these things, like the appointed time for p. 107. Slaughtering the Passover offering? The rule is, said our Akiva, all work for the Passover which it is possible to do on the eve of the Sabbath does not abrogate the Sabbath. Slaughtering, which it is impossible to do on the eve of the Passover which falls on the Sabbath, abrogates the Sabbath. 3. When do men bring with the Passover a feast offering? When the Passover falls on a weekday, when those who offer it are legally clean, and when the lamb is too small for the eaters. But when the Passover falls on the Sabbath, when the lamb is too much for the eaters, and there is legal uncleanness, they should not bring with it a feast offering. 4. The feast offering 1, came from flocks, from herds, from sheep and goats, from rams and ewes, and it may be eaten during a period of 2 days and 1 night. 5. The Passover which was slaughtered without the proper intention on the Sabbath. The offer of it is indebted for a sin offering. And all the other sacrifices which he slaughtered for the Passover, if they be not suitable for it he is guilty. And if they be suitable, Rabbi Eliezer declares him indebted for a sin offering. But our Joshua frees him. Said Rabbi Eliezer, what? If the Passover which was allowed for proper intention when the offer changed its intention, makes him guilty. Is it not the teaching that sacrifices, which are disallowed for want of proper intention when the offer changed their intention, make him also guilty? Rabbi Joshua said to him, No. If thou saidst in the Passover when he changed its intention it is changed to a thing disallowed, thou wilt say in the other sacrifices when he changed their intention they are changed to a thing allowed. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, The congregational offerings will give the proof, because they are rendered lawful on the Sabbath by intention, but whoever slaughtered another sacrifice with their intention is guilty. Rabbi Joshua said to him, No. If thou sayest so in the congregational offerings, which are a p. 108. Determined number, thou wilt also say so in the Passover sacrifice which has no determined number. Rabbi Meir said, Even he who slaughtered other offerings on the Sabbath, with the intention of the congregational offerings, is free. 6. When one slaughtered the Passover, but not for its eaters, or not for those numbered to eat it, for uncircumcised and for unclean persons, he is guilty. For its eaters and not for its eaters? For its reckoning and not for its reckoning? For circumcised and uncircumcised? For clean and unclean? He is free. He slaughtered it, and it was found blemished? He is guilty. He slaughtered it and it was found torn in secret? He is free. He slaughtered it, and it became known that its owners retired from it, or died, or became legally unclean? He is free, because he slaughtered it with lawful permission. Footnotes 106-1 The following subtle discussion arises out of the distinction between work forbidden by the law of God and resting from work enjoined by tradition. 106-2 The sprinkling of a person unclean from touching a dead body when the Passover fell on the Sabbath. 107-1 This refers to the second Shajda, the feast offering of individuals on the 15th of Nisan. It is called by the general name Passover, John XVII. 28. Want of acquaintance with this subject has led some commentators to suppose that there is a discrepancy between the account of the last Passover of our Lord as related in the Synoptical Gospels, and as recorded by St. John. The Talmud, by Joseph Barclay, 1878. Chapter 7. 1. How do men roast the Passover? They bring a stick of pomegranate and thrust it through its mouth to its tail. And they put its legs and intestines inside it. The words of our Jose, the Galilean. Rabbi Akiva said, that is a kind of boiling, therefore they hang them outside of it. 2. Men must not roast the Passover on the spit or a gridiron. Said our Zadok, it happened to Rabbi Gamaliel that he said to Zabi, his servant, Go and roast for us the Passover on the gridiron. If it touch the side of the oven,